Hello again, friends, and Happy New Year! A week or so into the year, but we are here, the first new drive-thru of 2026. I'm your host, the great Brian Last. As you can tell, we're going to have a good time today, folks. We got a lot going on with this man, the leader of the cult of Cornette, Mr. Jim Cornette.
You know, I was thinking, Brian, we had the holiday break. I haven't heard those mellifluous tones from your organ for a couple of weeks. And as you started into it, I was starting to think, I haven't heard this in a while, and maybe it'll be nostalgic and fun. And then you went sour, and it just reminded me of what it is instead of what I thought it would be.
And no one went sour. You just didn't.
You're not used to that
sour,
song, baby.
You're not used to that version of the song, so you.
And that version. Everything's a little freeform with you. Didn't we just talk? See, here, I'm going to say this again, because some way mathematically I'm getting bamboozled and flim-flammed out of what I thought was a vacation at the holidays, because we recorded extra stuff beforehand. Now I just spoke to you 36 hours ago to do the new experience, or the first experience of the year 2626. Well, I guess we got 600 more years. Anyway, we just did that, and now we're back here doing this. We're going to come back a couple days doing that. Did we get a vacation, or did we just rearrange our regular work?
We got a vacation, and we're doing as much as we can for the people.
See, you play upon my heartstrings.
Because we love them so much.
You're fingering me again. You finger my heartstrings.
Woo.
And remind me, boy, I tell you, you and my proctologist, I'll tell you, nevertheless, you remind me that we're doing this for the folks out there. And actually, I was going to say I wanted to be cheerful and chipper and entertained, but since I've spoken to you, there's been a lot of letdowns. We'll talk about it later on. I thought the Netflix they've been on anniversary is the word I'm grasping for. Anniversary, the anniversary of the Netflix debut. See there, it all works. That was going to premiere just hours after we spoke last, and I thought that's going to be a big wing ding, a stem winder, as Lance Russell would say. They got Braun Breaker and CM Punk for the world title, and it's going to be a big thing. Last year was big. This year's going to be big. It's going to be just huge. Wah, 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 wah. We'll talk about it, but I was underwhelmed by the whelm factor of that. And then I'm watching the new season of Curse of Oak Island, Brian, and I'll tell you, I may be so old they have to carbon date me by the time they find out what fuck was going on up there.
I can't believe that's still on the air. You told us about that years ago.
I think it's like the 14th season now, but they keep finding.
Watch out, Gunsmoke.
Well, I'm telling you, and Marshall Dillon may be a factor in the finish by the time they finish digging. They are finding archaeologically fascinating things, evidence of major construction for some unknown reason in hundreds of years ago on this tiny little island off of the coast of Nova Scotia or whatever. They'd found dick in a way of valuable shit, but what the fuck were these people doing? And why on this? That's the point. And they keep uncovering all this shit. But boom. But then, thankfully, Brian, just moments before we were scheduled to go on the air today, I have been tickled. This is the greatest thing I've heard in a week or two, as Jimmy Hart might have said one time. The biggest rivalry, the hottest feud, the talk of wrestling fans across the country now, apparently, is the hatred, the ill will, the animosity, if you will, between Steve Keirn and Nelson Royal from 38 years ago at the Crockett Cup. And that alone has cheered me up enough to make this day worthwhile. I don't get a lot of those, but that alone, because can you explain to the people how that this actually, because we just talked about Steve Keirn's match at the Crockett Cup 87 in Baltimore just a few days ago or whenever it was on the show.
Yeah, the question was about why he was there or what happened, because the Fabulous Ones were in the program, or they were originally listed. Obviously, Stan had replaced Dennis, joined the Midnight Express by then. Steve was still there. And, I never thought about it until someone asked about the booking, but I had never seen that match. I had never watched the entire show. I had the commercial tape for years.
Which it wasn't on.
Right. They show a montage in the music video of who was on the show, but you don't get to watch, Giant Baba and Takagi face off with Denny Brown and Todd Champion. Or some of the undercard, Multi-Mania in full effect on that show in the undercard. And one of the matches is Nelson Royal and Mike Graham. And this is when Florida and Jim Crockett Promotions was one, versus George South and Steve Keirn. And I said, I've never seen this. Let me go check it out. And almost instantly, I was like, well, there's something going on here. What's up with this behavior? And then with the idea, because we saw some comments in our YouTube video, hey, what's up with Steve Keirn and Nelson Royal? With the idea that maybe there was a problem there, watching it thinking there could be, it was one of the more entertaining matches I've watched in a long time. What was up with Steve Keirn? Is there anything, am I overlooking, am I looking too much into this?
Here's the thing also, the genesis of the comments that we had gotten were the WWE Vault, YouTube, whatever, had put up the entire Crockett Cup 87. And because, it was a 2-night deal at the Baltimore Civic Center, and each show was 3 hours long because the main event one night was Big Bubba Rogers and Ole Anderson in a cage, plus the tournament. And the next night was Flair and Wyndham for the world title, plus the tournament. So this was like 6 hours of fucking material, right? Because even in those, a big show was 3 hours long.
By the way, some of the best Midnight Express stuff. Stan had just joined the group. It's Bubba there, and it's you guys against the Garvins. Right after the burn angle.
That's the thing, is this is why I had never seen this match either until you pointed it out to me, because everybody was asking. But on the comments on the YouTube, on the WWE channel, there were the Vault deal of it. There were comments like, well, Keirn and Nelson Royal and what the fuck, and that led to comments to us, and then you went and watched it, blah blah blah. And when I saw it, I'd never seen it either, because there was no, they had a monitor in the truck, but there was no goddamn gorilla position in those days. They were shooting the thing for home video with the TV crew and for clips or whatever, but it wasn't like there was a giant place where all the talent could gather and comfortably watch the monitor backstage, right? There was you go through the fucking curtain. If you're not ready to go out and you're the next match, get the fuck out of the way. There's no room. The Civic Center locker rooms, they were tight, and hallways were tight. And if you had to, or you wanted to watch the matches, you had to go out on a stage and peek through the curtain. And to be honest, since there was a sellout, at least night 2, night 1 was close. They may have had seats on the stage at that point. So I'd never seen it either. But as we mentioned in the clip when we just talked about why the switch from the Fabs to Steve Keirn and George South came, because the Crockett Cup was, what was it, April 11 and 12? Let's say Dennis Condrey had pulled the old Houdini on March 24th. And Stan Lane made his debut as a member of the Midnight Express on the Atlanta TV that we taped the morning of April 4th. And the Crockett Cup was the next fucking week, right? So this happened quickly. The idea of the Crockett Cup had started in 86 and they were still trying to do it in 87 was that there would be teams from all over the country and all around the world. And the problem is a lot of the territories are starting to pass by the wayside and they, for whatever reason, never got a deal with Fritz while he was in business and blah, blah, blah. So to get 24 teams, you had to do the Denny Brown and Todd Champion at the bottom. But the thing is, the Fabs, as you mentioned, Crockett had just bought Florida. So the Fabs were in Florida. But as I'd mentioned, Keirn at that point had gotten a real estate license and because they were making like $300 a week. Eddie Graham had committed suicide a little over 2 years earlier. And as we've talked about on the show here before, if Vince McMahon Jr. had worked with any territory, it would have been Eddie Graham's, but Eddie Graham was gone. And Crockett had just got Florida. And so, the business is the shits down there, but the Fabs had a name for the previous 5 years as a tag team. So boom, they're booked in it because they had to book and advertise this giant tournament, weeks in advance. But then when Dennis threw us all for a loop, Dusty had the idea for Stan, brought him up, boom. So suddenly they've advertised. This is another thing. The Rock and Roll Express, I was asking the other day, and you answered correctly. Ricky was hurt. But Rock and Roll was they had gotten a bye through the first round. Rock and Roll, Midnight, Road Warriors, Dusty and Nikita, a couple of other teams didn't have to wrestle in the first round. The Fabs were going to go over in the first round and then meet the Rock and Roll in the second round. Dusty that was his advance booking. You could tell by the way they'd bracketed it from there, you could tell what was going to happen. But so now Stan's a member of the Midnight Express. Steve has no partner, but he doesn't want to give up the goddamn shot in Baltimore because that'll be a payoff like 2 weeks worth of work in fucking Florida easily. Just that one match. And, at the same time, the whole thing that they've advertised kind of fallen apart. So they wanted as many people there that were actually booked to be there as they could. Right. So this is where Steve is still there, even though the fabulous ones can't be. And as I'd mentioned in the earlier clip, they gave him George South because George was the go-to guy for Crockett. He could work. But poor fella, he didn't have the physique or the over-the-top personality. I mean, Crockett's crew at that point was the best in the business. The Horsemen and the Midnight and the Road Warriors and Dusty and blah, blah, blah. But he could work. So he was there to fill in because, as I said, they probably didn't give it a lot of fucking thought past that. And then the other team, Mike Graham, they booked truthfully because he was a member of the Graham family. They just acquired his territory. He was still in the office down there helping put together matches for what was going on in Florida. So and they booked Nelson Royal because of the respect they had for Nelly. More on that in a minute. But so that was the thing, is that already this match is fucked up, right? But at least if it had come off as booked, the fabulous ones would have beaten Mike Graham and Nelson Royal and proceeded on to the second round. Have I made that clear so far, or have I muddied this thing up?
Instead, it was like a battle bowl match. Like they just pick names out of a hat, and this will be your partner, and this will be your partner. Go out there and have a match in front of these fans who aren't familiar with every one of you. And
yes,
but
go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, and please comment on it. But there was a lot of weird things with Steve Keirn from the beginning of the match to me. Now, you've seen more Steve Keirn than most people. You've managed him in 91.
Well, but besides, I mean, I saw him before he was even fabulous. And then I was supposed to manage the Fabs, and then we worked with the Fabs, and the blah, blah, blah. No, here, wait, let me set the scene for you. From the standpoint of the people in the match, right? So George South, let's start with him. He is fucking thrilled because he gets to work in front of a fucking sellout house at the Baltimore Civic Center in the Crockett Cup tournament. And he's a, dedicated young man at the time, still, wrestles and appears and trains and etc. But he was thrilled to be there. And this is an excellent tag team match if you look at it as a tag team match. But this is kind of like an early example of what happens when you have a good match or even a great match when nobody in the crowd knows who the fuck you are or what the fuck's going on, right?
Yeah.
But George is happy to be there. His partner, Steve Keirn, his territory in Florida has been dying around him, but he was still part of a tag team that had been working on top in one place or another for the previous 5 years. The Fabulous Ones, he and Stan, they dominated Tennessee. They made money for Vern, even though he didn't know how to present them. And they'd had the AWA figures, right? And a good run in places. And he'd made some money. And all of a sudden, not only is his tag team gone, but his partner is going to the fucking finals in his new tag team that he's been in for 2 weeks, and he's making like 10 times the money Steve's making. And he gets up there and he's like, well, at least I'll get a payoff for this. It'll be easy. And then he hears that because of this fucked up with the rock and roll being hurt and the blah, 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 they've got to go 20 minutes Broadway because Dusty was just like, fuck it, eliminate both teams. Just fix the problem with the bracketing. Just eliminate both of them, baby. Just get the fuck out of here. And see, that's the thing. There was no staff of agents at that point. The finishes came from Dusty or from JJ, his assistant, and JJ had heard from Dusty what he wanted. Or occasionally they'd tell Tommy Young, if it was like the opening match, Tommy, tell him go 15 through, whatever. And you could all get together, baby faces and heels in Baltimore. You had no choice. These goddamn rooms were so fucking small. You couldn't get away from fucking people unless you went out to goddamn parking garage. But there's mass chaos going on with all these matches. And that's why I'd never seen it. Another reason, the Midnight and I, that weekend, we wrestled the Garvin brothers, Ronnie and Jimmy, wrestled the Road Warriors, wrestled fucking Dusty and Nikita. I managed Bubba against Ole. So, I didn't see a lot of the shit that was going on. But point being, there's Keirn's got it miserable anyway.
And if I could just jump in and ask you, had he just cut his hair? Because that may be the shortest I had seen his hair since the Fabulous Ones.
Well, remember, he was trying to sell real estate.
Yeah.
Remember, that's the thing. He couldn't go in looking like goddamn, fucking David Lee Roth at that point, and here I'd like to show you this wonderful 2-bedroom ranch house. So he's like, where am I fucking going from now? And the stands in the goddamn finals, whatever the fuck. On the other side, there is Mike Graham. Mike Graham and Steve Keirn were one of the legendary babyface tag teams in the Florida territory for Mike's father, Eddie Graham. Keirn, that's the place that Keirn had been used best in Florida before his Fabulous Ones career. And the people, he was a top babyface to the people down there because it was more serious wrestling, etc. And that's where Steve said he had to come to Memphis and learn the Gaga from Jerry Jarrett to, soup it up a little bit. But Mike and Steve went way back, and Mike's territory has just been bought, absorbed, fucking, somehow into the Crockett system. So they booked him and Dusty. They've known him for years. They booked him there as a favor. And he's got a part in Nelson Royal. Nelly was a guy that in that era and amongst those guys, he was respected as one of the best in-ring workers in the business. But again, it's a lesson that has parallels with today, in that Nelson had used gimmicks. And I mean, in the early 60s, he was an English lord, Sir Nelson Royal, right? With a top hat or a bowler or whatever the fuck it was. But really, no, he was the world junior heavyweight champion in the 70s after Hodge had the wreck, because they said, okay, we're not going to, most territories aren't going to feature the junior heavyweight title, but we want it on somebody that's a version of who we picked to be the NWA world champion. A guy who can go in and carry himself as a professional, work his ass off, be legitimate and believable, be a baby face or a heel, have the match like Harley has where he makes everybody look better, whatever. That was Nelson Royal. He didn't necessarily, have the size, physique, or by that time he was in his 40s and great shape, could wear everybody out. He and Bobby Fulton went 40 minutes one night at a spot show in the Carolinas outdoors in 40-degree weather. He just loved to fucking wrestle. But the thing is, so that's what all the boys respected. He trained George South. He trained all the guys that broke in with Crockett Carolinas in the 80s. He was training them up in Mooresville, and he had the cowboy gimmick, started the Bunkhouse Stampede because he had the Western store up there. So anyway, I watched this match and examining all these guys' reasons for what they were doing. They get there and they're in Baltimore. Nelson has been on Crockett TV, which has been in a kind of a on and off role for what? Baltimore got Crockett TV at 84, maybe late 85 or late 84, early 85. Nelson Royal's not a featured guy on Crockett TV at that point in time that people in Baltimore are going to go crazy for when they're waiting for the Road Warriors, right? And poor Mike Graham, haven't been out of Florida in 20 fucking years. People in Baltimore are like, pfft. And again, Steve Keirn, the only place maybe they don't know the fabulous ones fucking on that side of the Mississippi is, Crockett's territory. And poor George mentioned he was happy to be there. And then they sit him down and say, well, we got to eliminate both of you. Just go 20 minutes in front of that fucking crowd. I know that Keirn was the one that had to be going, what the fuck? And I bet you that Nelly came up with the idea, hey, let's you and me do something. And again, George was going to work with it, and Mike Graham can go with anything. So you heard the people in the building, they were hooting and boring, and the crowds even then didn't go boring in Baltimore back in those days.
They were chanting boring before they had a chance to be bored. It was because they didn't recognize or know the guys.
It was nobody, and they knew what it was going to be like, right? So I guarantee you that Nelly said to Steve Keirn, hey, let's do something like this. Because Nelson Royal could use salty language, and he was a cowboy and all that. But he's not a person that would scream motherfucker where children were around. He was a very polite gentleman, unless they were working something. So they went into business for themselves for this match and created their own storyline, because the only direction they got was go 20 minutes Broadway and eliminate both teams. And they were sitting there coming up with something. And Nelson and Keirn, and I'll explain Keirn's goddamn actions here in a minute.
Yeah, I want to know about what he was doing when he was just holding the
humping the rope.
Just he laying there like he was dead with his arm over the rope.
Okay, well, let me tell you now. Keirn had very kinetic movement to him. He would make sudden and almost robotic movements in the way he had a style that worked for him. It didn't look phony or anything when he did certain things, but certain movements he made he had a style different than anybody else, and it lent itself to you believing that something was going on with him, right? And one of the things that he would do in tag matches, he would either put his hand on a turnbuckle if there wasn't a tag rope, and he'd stretch his arm out, or if there was a tag rope, he'd grab it and hold on to it, but it'd be stretched out, and he'd lean over the top rope where the top rope was underneath his armpits and his neck, and he would fucking bend his knees and start bouncing up and down on the goddamn rope like that. And sometimes he'd have his head bent all the way over, and then he would pop straight up, turn to the right, take a couple of steps, spin 180 degrees, take a couple steps the other way, and do the same goddamn thing just to show that he was on the apron, fucking into the goddamn thing, watching what's going on. It's just, he's whatever the fuck, right? But everyone's on just a spot show, which is what he was considering this thing, to be honest with you, just this fucking thing. Sometimes he'd just fucking lean over the goddamn rope and just fucking watch the match with his head propped like it's on a pillow, right? And he'd be watching the match, but they even did a spot, the Fabs worked it in as a spot where if they were at a high school gym somewhere, you know, small, Tupelo, whatever it may be, to kill time, to confound the heels and get the fans into the fucking thing. Let's say stands in the ring and grabs the fucking heel's arm and cranks it up, right? And Keirn's over the rope like that with his head held down. And Stan shakes his ass at the heel's partner who comes in the ring, and the referee goes to him. And then Keirn immediately pops up and pops in the ring, and they switch places. And Keirn grabs the arm, and Stan stands like that with his head down. And when the referee turns around, he sees two blonde-headed guys wearing matching fucking tights with matching fucking tans with matching amounts of oil, right? And the heels are going ballistic. No, they switched. They didn't tag. And the fans, yes, they did tag. You went back and forth. They worked it into the fucking deal. But that's Keirn was treating this as a spot show match in some respects, but because he and Nelson had decided they were going to do something, as soon as Nelson gets in the ring with him, because there was a little exchange on a tag, and Nelson screams, "What's the matter, motherfucker?" or something like that. You hear the people go, "Ooh," because you weren't supposed to cuss back then. He might have got reprimanded.
I couldn't make out everything, but it gets to a point where Mike Graham backs Keirn into the corner, and then Nelson goes to grab his arms and hold him there, and Keirn very quickly jets off them and turns around.
Yeah.
And then Nelson Royal angrily comes in the ring, and that's where this first thing happens, where it appears he's saying, "I'm working with him," or "I'm wrestling him, motherfucker." And then, again, you can't hear Nelson Royal. I convinced myself for a little bit he was saying, "You can't stop selling in the corner." But that's not what he said.
That's not what no, he wasn't doing that.
But let me just say this. Watching this match with the idea that something could be off with Keirn, and he behaves so weird, and he looks like he's so not interested. It's like if someone was trying out for a job by showing they don't give a shit.
Yes.
It becomes a fascinating match. Nelson Royal's really fucking good.
That's the thing.
Who's the heel? That's the only issue you have. Is Nelson Royal, who's working like a heel, the heel, or is Keirn, who doesn't give a shit and is acting like a heel, the heel?
Actually, that's the thing is they knew they had to go 20 minutes, so they figured, okay, there's heat between me and you, Steve, if Nelson's saying this. And Nelson and Keirn both can work to the point, and that was kind of Nelson's calling card. He could work a professional wrestling match of the style that existed at the time with pretty much no fucking holes in it. You can't really point out any bullshit. He's so aggressive and he stays on you and blah, blah, blah. And Keirn liked to do that shit too, the old Eddie Graham days. Or the little cheap shot. And I saw one of the comments on the YouTube channel was, "It looked like Nelson Royal really tried to knee Keirn in the nuts there." And that's what they were doing, and fucking being a little rough with each other. And at the same time, by the end of the thing, they were turning one team heel, depending on your viewpoint of the thing, so that after the bell rang, they could have that brief flurry of a four-way and leave them up some kind of way rather than having to shake hands. And really, it was more Nelson Royal and Mike Graham being the heel team just because of Nelson's work.
Yeah.
And poor George South being the guy who's happy to be there and, just holding up his end.
I encourage everyone to watch this. It's on the is it WWE or WCW Vault? Whatever the official channel is, if you put 1987 Crockett Cup, it'll come right up. The tag match, the fans there don't give a shit at all. Start chanting boring right away. Yeah. And it goes a while. But if you watch it with the idea that there's something up, it's a great match. However, by the end, when they're doing the countdown to the draw, the fans are cheering. They really want it to end.
Yes. Oh, the biggest pop was when the bell rang to end the match. And the countdown, they were with it. They were counting with 9, 8, 7, 6. But that's what I'm saying. You can, and again, this match was completely called in the ring by the guys that, no, I'm telling you, when you're watching this with the modern eyes, for all the folks out there, the guys in the ring, and really Steve Keirn and Nelson Royal and Mike Graham is more than capable of doing it, but he probably just laid back and went with the flow. But they called the whole thing in the ring for 20 minutes based on the fact that they knew that nobody in the match was over with this crowd. And they were told to go 20 minutes to a flat fucking time limit draw. And again, Keirn compounded by being so fucking, I would have to think, despondent over his lot in life at that point. And then Keirn and Nelson Royal just deciding to have some fun and working in a way, both physically and verbally and in attitude, to see if they could hook any of these fucking people to believe that they were really fucking pissed at each other, which again, it wasn't a novelty and nobody was looking for it in 1987 because those fans thought everybody was pissed at each other. So they just get the fuck out of here. We don't know who you are. We want to see the Road Warriors. But now, 38 years later, with people just going back and looking at it cold, they bought it. They finally, it took 38 years, but Nelson Royal and Steve Keirn's fucking shoot match, somebody bought it.
And it's great.
That's the greatest goddamn thing.
Second biggest pop of the match, and probably the biggest pop this has ever gotten in wrestling history. 2 minutes remaining. 2 minutes. And people came out of their seats like they were ready for that. But it's really good. Like I said, it's a different pace, obviously, than what you see now, and the fans aren't into it. But if you can kind of tell yourself the story of the match, it's a really good match.
And that's the thing is that, again, it's not just about the talent involved. Because the talent at Mike Graham was not only a hell of a worker, but he had drawn money in Florida, not just because he was the son. He held up his deal. He wasn't a Greg Gagne type of situation. But Nelson Royal, again, had never been the main event guy on a national basis, but a 25-year veteran at that point in his 40s, great shape, but could not only fucking work, but had drawn money and featured in territories over the years. And tag teams also. And obviously, Keirn, we just talked about the run he'd had. But if you're just in a cold match for no reason and the people don't know who you are there, you can't just have a great match and expect. Anyway, there's a lesson for you. But 38 years it took. I wish Nelson was still around to see this.
And real quick, I'll just say this because I brought up the team a few times. Denny Brown and Todd Champion, who must have been a rookie at that point. Denny Brown is one of my least favorite wrestlers ever. He just looks so ratty. He has the worst mullet. It doesn't go with anything else. He looks cheap. Eventually, he had the biggest beer gut. I never thought he should ever be on camera in wrestling. I'm sorry to say. But he carried Dusty's bags, but Dusty needed someone to carry things around.
Well, no, he didn't even really. Here's the thing. It wasn't even really that he was carrying Dusty's bags, because then he would have had to travel with Dusty. I don't think Dusty wanted to travel with him. I just think he got a kick out of having him around in the locker room. But downtown Denny Brown, baby, it was from Florida, and and it was like a mascot. But yeah,
they beat the Mulkeys. Denny Brown and Todd Champion defeated the Mulkeys. If you ever want to see the Mulkeys get the best reaction of their life, that's the match right there, right off their win off TV. The fans.
No, if you ever want to see the Mulkeys get the best reaction of their life, wrestle them in their fucking hometown at the rec center.
But there's no footage.
No, there was almost about 8 feet of rope around our fucking necks. That would have been the footage.
Again, Jim, people can go back and check out this match, Crockett Cup 87, but watching the match, Jim.
Yes.
You would almost think Steve Keirn's listening to one song, and the rest of these guys are listening to some other song, maybe a country and western song. And Steve Keirn's listening to some Billy Squier or something. It didn't work, but that's one of the great things about life and about music. You choose what you listen to, and whatever you choose, you have to make sure you hear it right. You need the right earbuds, and we have the place to send everyone.
Well, I know where I'd like to send you, but folks, if I can just muddle through some of the tangled verbiage and twisted vernacular that was just foisted upon you, I will tell you this, that our friends over at Raycon, which, by the way, this message and this fine podcast is sponsored by our friends over at Raycon. They're no con, they're fact, because they have now not only the infamous everyday earbuds, but they have the essential open earbuds. Now, you're going to ask me, you're going to say, Jim, what is the difference between the essential open earbuds and the everyday earbuds? One of the earbuds, the everyday earbuds, goes in your ear, and the essential open earbuds go hook around your ear. Now, why do you want this, Brian? You may ask. Go ahead and ask why. Ask why. Why?
Well, Jim, why would you want this wonderful feature?
Because apparently a lot of the people that had the earbuds stuck in their ear got hit by trains because they couldn't hear the thing coming.
That's not the reason. That's not. I thought you were really going to give me an official reason. It wasn't that. No.
Well, they don't have a reason here, so I'm just speculating. All I can do is speculate.
Why would your mind go there?
But because the essential open earbuds, they do not block out the car honking or the people screaming, "Stop! It's a cliff!" or anything like that. They sit outside your ear canal, so the sound goes into your canal, while at the same time, the train does not go up your anal canal because you didn't hear it coming. And, the statistics show that people who have had trains run up their ass has increased exponentially over the past number of years since that actually earbuds and headphones and methods of excommunicating yourself from the world have been invented.
There are no statistics.
And then boom, and they stop on the tracks to bend over and pick something up, and boom, there's the train, goes right up there.
Hey, listen, less tracks, more ears. Let's get back on track here, Jim. Let's talk about Raycon.
You can hang these off your ears because it's got the open ear design where you hear your music and you hear the world around you both at the same time because of the multi-angular hook. The multi-angular hook it's got. It's very lightweight, that is flexible and adapts to any ear whatsoever, except they're still trying to make one for the African elephant. I understand the Indian elephant size has been made, but the African elephants are a little bit touchy. But otherwise, any
human ear on human beings for human consumption.
Did you know they used to have to glue fake ears on Indian elephants to make them African elephants in the Tarzan movies? And also, folks, the multi-point connectivity still works. You can connect to multiple devices and switch seamlessly. Means that you do not have to sew these things in. They will stay on. 36 hours of battery life, 8 hours of playtime. Holy mackerel. I don't know why in the world you would not listen to something if you would, or why you wouldn't want to listen to something on these fine earbuds. You know what I'm saying, Brian. I got the tense wrong there.
Oh, yeah.
If you want to listen to something, you're wanting to listen to them on these fine earbuds.
Well, Jim, I'm sure we have a great deal for the listeners. What is that deal? And that
What do we now? We got to give them more money off in 2026 too. We've saved these people a fortune in 2025, and now they just expect deep discounts on everything. All right, 20% off everything into place. 25% off everything into place if you go to buyraycon.com. B-U-Y.
You just said two different numbers. You said 20% and then you said 25% the next second.
No, I said 20% twice.
You said 25 the second.
I said 20% off everything into place. Run the tape back. Well, never mind. Just listen to me now. 20% off everything in the place over there at buyraycon, BUYRAYCON.com/JCE open. It's where we're opening you up to all these deals. 20% is what I've said and I maintain all along. Buyraycon.com/JCE open, 20% off. You will not be run over by a train or penetrated by any other moving object unless you're willing to be, and in which case you've probably taken off the earbuds to negotiate the whole deal separately.
Let's get back on the track here. And once again, buyraycon.com/JCE open. A great deal, a great earbud. Raycon.
The ear hook part rotates. So if your ears are facing backwards, you can just flip it around.
Well, Jim, let's try to flip ourselves around. Let's go from the joy of talking classic wrestling to WWE Raw, the big anniversary on Netflix. 1 year on Netflix, the first new Raw of the new year, and of course, a tie-in with Stranger Things. A tie-in which included a van, some lighting, and music. Not one star from the show was there or anything. But let's talk about WWE Raw 1 year on Netflix.
Well, and that's I was going to ask you, because, and you'll, folks out there in podcast land, you'll find out in a minute why I was skipping through most of this program, trying to get to the meat of the matter. No pun intended, as it's going to turn out, to get to the meat of the matter. But I got to be honest, Brian, I don't lie to the people. You can testify to that. I've heard the name Stranger Things in relation to a television show. I have no fucking idea what the things are or how strange they truly are. I don't know what it's about. I don't know who's in it. I don't know if I have time to find out. I'd rather sort negatives, to be honest with you, at this point in my life, as I'm winding things down toward the end. But I saw them at the open when they had the weird vehicle thing, whatever the fucking, the lighting and the Zabada. And as I was zipping through, I never saw anything else related to a thing, strange or otherwise. Was that it? Did I miss something or was that it?
Again, it's a big deal for Netflix. It's a big popular show. And this is the last season. They just debuted the last episode, so it's the time. I thought there was going to be something. I was afraid it would be like AEW, where like the wrestlers come out dressed like characters and that kind of stuff. But we didn't even get that.
Were some of the ghosts on the show going to come out and beat up some of the boys? I don't know that I'm advocating for that. I don't know why there was why do you... I understand they want to promote and advertise the show on their network, but how do you advertise it's a crossover when nothing crossed over?
Yeah, the stranger thing is why WWE booked this show, because they seem to be booking worse and worse TV shows. And this is one where they had a lot of attention. What are they going to do? There has to be something big. Some fans thought Jericho would be there. I didn't think it would be Jericho. Some may have even thought The Rock will reappear. We didn't think that would happen in his new slim down phase. But there was nothing. I mean, it was a big main event. Can't take anything away from Braun versus Punk.
Oh, I'm about to.
But it just felt like a Raw. Did it just feel like a Raw with a van?
No, it felt like fucking Glow with a main event. Is what it felt like. The only men's wrestling match on a 2.5 hour program was CM Punk and Braun Breaker. And not only that, but for God's sake, if you're talking about main event quality, I mean, Becky Lynch and model girl, what's her name? Maxine
Dupree.
I was going to say Maxine Lepre, but she would have had to live in a 1-bedroom apartment. They've had that already a few times. They had it again. Becky beat her. Liv Morgan beat Lyric Valedictorian. At one point, Rochelle in the back of the arena beat the shit out of Stephanie Vacker. And
who was doing a promo? Who was doing a promo?
Who was doing a promo
in a walking boot?
And Io and Rhea against Oscar and Kerry again. That Rhea's been stuck in the land of Japanese Lilliput. And that was the show. AJ and Gunther talked mean to each other. And the Usos cut a promo.
Did you see any of the AJ Gunther stuff? Because that kind of continued briefly in the back later on.
No, to be honest, I did not. I did not because I had read the recap, and when I skipped, because I didn't have on-screen fast forward either this week for whatever reason. It comes, it goes. And when I'd already seen that it was Becky, I knew I'd gone too far, but it was too late to turn back now. Because I believe I'm getting so bored.
Let me ask you this about Gunther. Because obviously everything now centers around him still saying that he tapped John Cena or made John Cena tap out like a little bitch.
Like a little bitch.
He even had like a shirt made up. Considering John Cena's not coming back, should they move on? Should they have him say something else or do something else instead of having AJ Styles get offended that he's insulting John Cena?
Well, there's a middle ground there between shadow and superstition, Brian. I think he should keep it up. I mean, think of, all the heels in the past. I broke Wahoo's leg that have gotten mileage out of something. Yes, I made
Wahoo
John
came
Cena
back,
tap out like a little bitch. Well, but at the same time, it kind of lasted. I don't know. Do more people remember that Wahoo actually came back and got even now, or do they just remember I broke Wahoo's leg? But you know what I'm saying? It's a method to generate heat. Reminding people what he did to their icon and, well, he can't come back and get even, you son of a bitch, whatever. But why at the same point, what was the second part of your point that I was going to point out?
AJ Styles is defending John Cena's honor?
AJ should not be, that's the part that I don't agree with, in that I think AJ needs his own reason as a grown man. Maybe Gunther stepped on his fucking toe walking out or whatever, instead of just, hey, don't talk bad about my friend who left here to make movies. And no, it should be more personal there. So while I agree with one half of that, the other half, AJ needs a personal reason rather than just taking up for good old John.
Well, any other thoughts on anything other than the main event from Raw?
Oh, no, I didn't know we were there already.
Well, I didn't know if there was anything else you saw. That's what I was asking.
Well, no, I was going to, again, make the commentary. They're in fucking Brooklyn. I know that sounds to some people like it's, they're a fucking street corner playing stickball. But this is the big building. What is it, Brian? The Barclays Center?
Yeah.
So it's not like Berwyn. It's a big building. It's the Netflix anniversary. How many people did they have there? I don't fucking remember, but it was goddamn sold out. And we get 3 girls matches, a promo with a tag team that doesn't just, oh, hey, we're back. And AJ and Gunther with a slap in the face, literally. And besides the main event, that's the whole fucking show? help me try to, that's the point that I'm making, is that you don't, just because Jericho wasn't going to be there and people are like, oh, they'll save that for whatever the fuck. There's major goddamn stars that already work for the company. I'd like to have seen some of them. I mean, what the fuck was this?
It was also an Usos promo, I think.
I mentioned that as a tag team. Is, hey, we're back. Yeah, okay. I'm not saying you got to get in a fight in every promo, but then AJ and Gunther, it just, Jesus Christ on a cracker.
I think that unless the philosophy is, hey, let's cool everything down before we have to heat it up because we can do really well even while it's cooled down, or if they really think they're doing good TV, or Vince is sending in the TV. I really don't know. The TV sucks. It's Raw and SmackDown. SmackDown's now 3 hours again. It's both shows. They're not good. And we saw when things were hot, a 2-hour SmackDown flew by. Raw was easy to watch. These shows are not easy to watch, and the problem is the creative. They got the stars. The problem is the creative.
Brian, you know what I'm going to be saying every Friday night now, don't you? Shoot up here amongst us because one of us needs a little relief. But anyway, that's the point. Even if they wanted to have 3 ladies matches, can you put a couple of guys matches in just to change it up and make it different? Did we need a 2.5 hour program where there literally were only 4 fucking wrestling matches on it? So anyway, 1 hour and 54 minutes into the presentation, here came Braun Breaker, the big match we've been waiting for. And then they transitioned to like a Mussolini in Brooklyn. And it's, CM Punk is a big city guy, Brian. Because if you notice, the big markets, the LAs, the Chicagos, the New Yorks, they sing louder, they cheer louder, they clobber in time more efficiently together. And then, but at the same point, if he was to go to Greenwood, Mississippi, well, there might be 3 or 4 people on the card that they might cheer louder, but he's fucking over in the big markets. And he got the Punk chants and the whole thing. And I liked the little touch. He wore a varsity club jacket, like the college letterman thing with that Steiner and Rotunda used to wear. And the announcers actually were able to call attention to that. I guess the new administration is letting them freely say that Braun Breaker is a Steiner. He's a Breaker Steiner. Shouldn't he just be hyphenated now? Braun Breaker Steiner. Does it pass the name test?
I think they've used it long enough that they're going to stick with it, and it has to be one or the other. They went with Breaker, and that's the way it'll be until he goes to AEW in 10 years.
No, I got news for you. God damn it. Well, fuck it. I'll remind me and I'll put the money in escrow because I don't know. I can't guarantee that I'll still be around at that point. But if Braun Breaker is still in the wrestling business at all 15 years from now, he will still be with the WWE, or I will pay you $10,000. How about that? How about them apples?
With inflation, $10,000 then, or $10,000 the value of it now?
Oh, goddamn. Now you just gotta be that way where you just think of all kinds of different ways to flummox me and confuse the issue. I'm saying that, no, this is not a kid that's going to be going anywhere unless he leaves the wrestling business through hopefully other opportunities or gets hurt or whatever the case. But no, he's going to be there for a while. Anyway, here's the point, though. He probably wishes he wasn't. I think there was an element of snake bittedness to both participants here And I don't know if maybe Braun overanalyzed in his head or whatever. They did some nice wrestling at first, and then Braun cut him off just within a minute. And I mean, it's not a thing they do anymore where you shine the baby face that much. Because I mean, back in my day, if you had a 15-minute match, well, you might shine the baby face for 7 or 8 minutes, get 5-6 minutes of good solid fucking heat, and take a minute or two for your finish. Now they just hip toss, fucking cut him the fuck off. But the problem was Braun's heat was uninspiring. I sound like James Lipton now. Look him up, kids. But it was uninspired. It didn't seem to flow. He didn't seem comfortable going from one thing to another. Maybe part of it is he's been used to tag team matches for a little while. I don't know. Or was it that potentially was Punk trying to call it all in the ring, see where the kid was, and he's not all the way used to that. But when Braun had the opportunity to do things, it seemed like he was more hesitant. And Punk would fight back, but then Braun would cut him off again and keep the heat going because, again, they're trying to elevate. Punk's already a star. They're trying to elevate Braun Breaker, so he's kicking the shit out of Punk for most of this match. But then Braun missed the Breakensteiner off the top rope, and he reminds me again so much of Rick, because I would watch Rick when he was young. And how old was he in 1984, Brian, Mr. List Maker? Do you even remember? Is Braun about the same age now as Rick was then? Probably.
Rick wasn't on the list because he wasn't doing anything in 84, but he was born in 61.
That's right. 60. Okay, well, 23. Braun's what, 28 now? So during the first couple of years of Rick's career, about this same period of time, Rick would take bumps that you go, Jesus Christ. And he would get up and it wouldn't faze him. And there was an element of, yes, he's such a physical beast and a specimen that he can take a bump better than a skinny guy or a fat guy with no fucking muscle. And he's also such an athlete that he has a rolling way of doing some things and a situational awareness of his body in the air at the time that he can tuck and do things. It's kind of, Braun looks a lot like Rick did in that aspect, but launching himself into some of these things, no matter how good you are at it or how tough you are or how good a shape you're in, eventually, last time I saw Rick Steiner, he probably wished that he'd done a fewer of those. I'm not saying he was in a goddamn wheelchair, but he wasn't wanting to take any more fucking bumps. Right? He'd still probably stretch the average person, but nevertheless, in this case, when Braun missed the Breakensteiner, he landed on pretty much on his head, but his arms were underneath him. And because of the Steiner freakiness and situational awareness, and he got tucked just enough, he didn't just snap his head. But what happened was he got up to the top just fine. And I'm trying to figure out how to explain this. He does it so often, one would think, I guess maybe that when he got up to the top, he was up and upright, and he would have been able from there to do the Hurricane Rana. But instead, he started leaning backwards before he reached up and did the fucking finger thing that he always does at the top. And it looked like when he was going backwards, he said, oh shit, he had to get the finger thing in first. And by the time he did the finger thing and then he fucking kicked his legs up, he was already going. And he just whipped around and Punk just collapsed on the top rope because his legs were gone in an instant. There was no, where the commentators said Oh, Punk was able to hold on and foil it or whatever. But he just Hurricane Rona'd Casper the Friendly Fucking Ghost off the top rope and landed on his head. And I'm old-fashioned. I was like, all right, they did it where it looked like Punk countered it. I would have gone on. But they ended up, because I know the people love to hear the Stones play Satisfaction or whatever the fuck it may be, where they went within a minute back to it where he went up and did hit it. And actually, Punk may have called it again, said, just do it goddamn right this time, just so he didn't have a complex, Braun that is, about doing it again and leave it like that. But then, then they had to, the finish had to get complicated, which to me took some of the momentum away from the thing. Or when Punk was making his comeback and hit the elbow off the top and he's calling for the go to sleep, and Paul got up on the apron, old Happy Heyman, and distracted Punk. And then Reed and Logan Paul and Austin Theory came out, and Punk is fighting them off the apron, but they bump the referee in the process in the ring. And then Theory was able to hit the curb stomp and cover and got a 2 count when the referee revived. But here comes Penta and Dragon Lee, and they're fighting the heels off. I'm like, I'm in AEW. It got busy there when hopefully they had created a little goddamn momentum on their own. I'm not saying don't have anybody try to interfere, but maybe 5 people within 45 seconds, and then they're all, and a referee bumping them. It just kind of was a little distracting, like leopard print wallpaper. And then they continued the match. And Braun speared the post, and Punk hit a go to sleep and got the 2 count. And then Punk got him with a pile driver, barely. Got a 2 count. And then Braun foiled a GTS and got the arm bar, but Punk escaped and got the Anaconda Vice. And Braun, now they're doing some good shit. Okay. Braun with a gut buster and a clothesline. I have a feeling that Braun is somewhat also like his father and or uncle and or similar folks from the 80s. When he's laying those fucking clotheslines in on a comeback, he looks like he's excited. So I'm not wondering if maybe Punk might be black, blue, or some other kind of orange by the time this thing's over with. Braun called for the go to sleep, and Punk foiled it into an STF. And then Paul came up again, and Brian, I don't know when the last time I saw this, but Paul Heyman took a bump. Punk punched him right in his penguin-like head, and he took a bump off the apron of the ring. Did you feel the earth tremor about a 7.8 on the East Coast when that happened?
Although I'm not too far from Brooklyn, we did not feel that, no.
No, they reported it at NORAD. They thought it was some kind of fucking alien goddamn advance invasion. So anyway, boom, down goes Heyman. Down goes Heyman. And then they went to do a deal where Punk was going to dive out and Braun was going to do the deal where you've seen the guy when the guy's going to do a dive, but the other guy on the floor double crosses him and reaches up and nails him, whatever. And I've never really liked that spot anyway, because when you're diving through the ropes, how do you goddamn reverse your momentum to sell? Most of the time, it's like the guy takes a swipe as best he can at the guy as he goes down. Well, in this case, as Punk dives through the ropes and Braun hits him with a forearm or whatever he's trying to do, Punk just went not only straight goddamn face first down to the mat or the floor, but also somewhere or another blew his foot out of his boot. Did you see that?
I did.
I'm like, how the fuck? Because I went back and rewound as much as I trying to follow the guy's foot to see when did he blow out his boot. And it had to be on the dive. And I don't know how on a dive you blow out a wrestling boot, but his foot was coming through the goddamn thing. It was like flopping. A piece of it was flopping off. And so now he's face first on the goddamn ground. And his boot's blown out that he staggers over the desk to do the goddamn spot. And Braun comes off the top rope all the way to the announce desk with a clothesline, and they go through the desk. Boom. And then fucking finally they both get in and Punk's fucking woozy. And Braun goes for the spear. And to me, this was the same comment I just made about the reversing the trajectory on a dive through the ropes and somebody punches somebody. Braun went for the spear, and the concept was that Punk would catch him with a knee lift to the fucking head. Boom. Oh, shit. He knocked him goofy. Hit him in the head with the fucking knee when he's coming that fast. But you can't, especially with Braun, and especially with it being a work, but with Braun coming that fast for a spear, even if you did knee lift him for a shoot, he's still going to keep going forward. There, it's awkward to show the impact, to get the people to understand it. Do you see what I'm saying? This is awkward to pull off an actual execution.
Yeah.
And so I thought it was a little, because the announcers called it right. Oh, he hit him with the knee, but it didn't, I don't think there's any way to stop Braun Breaker's spear on a dime. So if they want to foil it, they should concentrate on ducking or diving out of the way of it when they're in front of something hard or dangerous, or some way using his forward momentum as he goes by them to drive him into some or whatever, rather than trying to stop it on a dime and have him portray that he's got knocked goofy. It doesn't translate to a big building. But go to sleep, 1, 2, 3, and there was the finish. And then Punk tore the rest of the piece of his boot off and threw it down on the mat. And then he was probably sitting there going, well, thank God, at least that's over. He didn't kill me. My fucking boot, and the goddamn, he didn't kill himself on the bump on his head, and we got by with this thing. And he jumps up and goes to grab the belt from the referee, and as he grabs it, he loses grip on it, and he drops the belt on Raw, as they say. Literally dropped it in the middle of the ring and had to pick it up again. Fucking, who was it? Somebody did that one night with Brian Hildebrand in Smoky Mountain and just pitched it halfway across the fucking ring. But anyway, so it wasn't the shining example of what either fellow can do between the lackluster rest of the show, then the equipment malfunction, then the near fatal occurrence of Braun Breaker's midair gyroscope not working, and then a finish at the end that got awful cluttered. So I'd still like to see him just maybe go one-on-one again. And at some point, I'm sure I will. But without some of I'd love to see Paul take another bump. I don't know. What'd you think, young Brian?
There were elements of the match or moments in the match I really liked, but altogether it felt disjointed. Obviously, things didn't go perfect, whether it was the boot or the Breakensteiner, I guess it is. Someone's going to hurt themselves, whatever company landing on their head. I'll just say that here real quick, because we just talked about it. But the cluttered finish, that's becoming another big problem with all the WWE main events, it seems like. There are some that don't have that. But man, the interference on every single main event, especially with the Heyman stuff. And again, it's a heel stable. That's what heel stables do, but I don't know.
Well, yeah, but there can be just one designated interferer that could get a point across. And again, when I saw Dragon Lee and
right, that they ran them off.
What's the other fellow's fucking name? Penta.
Yeah.
Shouldn't this be a kind of a Cody-ish type of level? I'm not saying Cody himself, and he's on the other program most of it, but I'm just saying a top level individual, which they didn't have many of on this program for the fine folks in Brooklyn. So that's why I was a little disappointed by the lack of magnitude of it all, Brian, when they're supposed to be making major motion pictures and sitcoms.
Big main event for a big Raw, but looking at it as just the first CM Punk Braun Breaker match, is it an okay first match for the two?
I think they're glad they got it out of their system, so now they can go on from here. I think that's probably what they're thinking. Okay, we got that one out of the way.
Well, maybe CM Punk, Jim, maybe what he's thinking, especially after a match like that, is I want to get the stink of this off me. I need to make sure I don't have the odor of what just happened, whether it's my boot or everything else. That odor must go. We know someone, a friend of ours here on the show, that can help CM Punk smell good, be clean, and really those are the big features. Smell good and be clean, our friends at Mando.
That's exactly correct, Brian, as I answered so perfunctorily and punctually. Folks, Mando, and of course that is spelled M-A-N-D-O. Now, we had some problem. We had some problem with some folks going to Mando, which is M-A-N-D-O-U-G-H, but that is a place that sells special molds to make plaster casts of your manhood. Mando, that's not it. This is Mando, M-A-N-D-O. That's where you're supposed to be going unless you want to deal with a bunch of dicks. But the folks at Mando, shopmando.com, boy, howdy, they ain't nearly prickly. They want to help you out because if you stink right now, Brian, the studies have shown that you're not going to get laid as often as you could. And let's face it, if we go by some of the people you see walking down the street, if that's twice a year, well, they're lucky right now. They're missing out on at least something every 3 months. Because smelling better naked, that is the hope and the wish for everybody in the new year. No, that's what it says right here. There's one New Year's resolution that's right within reach, and that's smelling better naked. I mentioned on the experience last time that if you wear clothes, well, you can conceal that at some point if you're smelling like a man eating Fremunda cheese in a septic tank of a slaughterhouse. But if you're naked walking down the street, if the breeze goes the right way, people are going to pick you up and you can clear a public park or a shopping mall, whatever the case. So you want to make sure, and in the warm climates, Brian, even this time of year, a lot of people walking around naked because it's 70-something degrees. So you want to know this is created by a doctor who saw how normal BO. And you know what BO stands for, don't you? Ball odor.
Body odor.
Well, both of those. He saw it was being misdiagnosed and mistreated. Some physicians back in the 30s and 40s, especially before they got rid of the iron lung, were just chopping your testicles off to keep them from stinking. And that led to all kinds of problems.
You've been misdiagnosed. It's not hepatitis. It's BO.
And boom. So this is clinically proven to help you keep your balls. Now, if you get another problem with them, well, then we're not responsible, but they're not going to cut them off just because they stink. It's going to block odor all day and control your odor for up to 72 hours, folks. The Mando deodorant, the solid deodorant stick that is formulated and powered by mandelic acid. Nelson Mandela invented this in prison.
He did not have anything to do with this in prison.
He got the copyright soon after he got out. You're not allowed as a felon, in prison to have a copyright, but nevertheless, it stops odor before it starts. And they've got the spray deodorant, which is aluminum free, or aluminium, as they say across the pond, and ideal for the hard to reach places. Now, because the spray deodorant, you can just take one finger on the sprayer and bend over and you can cover all kinds of ground, but the solid stick, you got to put that at least, just the tip at least, all the way. And it's harder to reach that place.
Why?
And all of the products are baking soda free, so you do not want to try to make biscuits with these things. And paraben free. If you look up paraben, you'll see that it's something that you don't want to have anywhere around you. And you can choose from a variety of fresh scents like bourbon leather. Boy, you can get crocked on that shit too.
No, it's a wonderful scent. It's a wonderful scent.
You sniff enough of it because it's 40 proof.
It's not, you do not know that. We don't know what the proof is. We know that it's a wonderful scent.
I've got the proof right here. Bourbon leather, clover woods. That's where you're lost in the forest and you're trying to smell your way out. Pro sport, that's where you smell like an athlete competing in the Olympics. Alone, away from home, with no access to clean laundry. And, of course, the Mr. Fuji scent.
Mount Fuji.
Mount Fuji. Well, there's a replica of Fuji's face on the label. It's clinically proven to control odor better than a shower with soap alone. And never take a shower with soap alone. Always take a shower with soap and somebody else to grease up the right places.
Once again,
but 12 hours after a shower, yes, you're 12 hours after a shower, if you're still trying to get rid of her. The average man's grundle odor level is a 5 out of 10, only 12 hours after a shower. And of course, you don't want your grundle to be that nearly that high.
Yeah, who did that study?
Professor Grundle. You don't remember Bernie Grundle? You don't remember him? He managed the Eagles for a while before they found Ronstadt. With Mando, the average Grundle odor level is a 0 out of 10, 12 hours after a shower. So just take a shower every 12 hours and nobody will be able to smell you. Even the police bloodhounds. And here's another thing. If you shower every 12 hours from now on, you can commit any crime you want, because the police bloodhounds will not be able to smell you. If you want to try America's
that
number
is
one
not true, and that is not something we're going to endorse. Don't commit any crimes, and if you do commit a crime because you're a crook or just a bad person, they will find you because your scent will be so lovely. After you deodorize and wash up from these fine Mando products, you will be found, and that dog will be happy with that scent. It'll be a pleasant scent.
They'll track you down. No, I'm telling you, if a shower every 12 hours, I'm not recommending they commit a crime. I'm just saying if they do, I mean, if you're a morally bankrupt individual and you want to commit a crime, just know the dogs won't smell you. But
let's
what
keep
you
going.
can do,
Keep going. Let's power through.
Yes,
let's go.
Let's go. Mando can get the job done right of masking your BO. Don't mask it, Mando it. Available in retailers near you, or head to shopmando.com, because for a limited time, new customers get 20% off site-wide with our exclusive code JCE. Shopmando.com, MANDO. 20% off site-wide, free shipping with the code JCE, and tell them we sent you and told you that you stink.
Mando! All right, we continue on here with the big show. And
continuating on there. I've got something for you, though, just real briefly, just before we go on to our next topic. This tickled me to death. Somebody tweeted the other day the article on, we've talked about the Ox-Baker riot in Cleveland with Johnny Powers and Ernie Ladd. And the natives are getting restless. And we've directed people to see the video on YouTube, and a lot of people have seen it. Well, this is a newspaper article on, I guess, the day after. And if fans storm ring, wrestler is hurt. A wrestler suffered head lacerations requiring 6 stitches after fans stormed the ring and hurled chairs during last night's pro wrestling matches at the arena. And apparently, it was the second incident in 2 nights at the arena. They'd had a hockey game the night before. And it says Coach Bill Deneen and winger Gordie Howe of Houston attacked some fans in the stands. So they were 2 for 2 in Cleveland at that point. And then this is the quote that tickled me. And by the way, Ox Baker was taken to Charity Hospital, 6 stitches to close a head wound. But Dave Ott, the chairman of the Cleveland Boxing and Wrestling Commission, would you like to hear his quote, Brian, on the incident?
Yeah.
This is the chairman. It was a mess, I'll tell you what. I've been on this commission 20 years, and this was only the 3rd time something like this has happened. It's like once every 6.5 years, folks, believe me. Oh, so the commission had a firm grasp on the on goings on there, and we're cracking down on that. Estimated 3,000 fans in the crowd that night, and only 40 or 50 of them ended up in the ring. So that's not bad.
All right. Well, that's the Ox Baker update, folks, for those looking for the latest news about the Cleveland riot in 75. Jim.
Yes.
As we move on with the show, something else that happened during our break. We're catching up with a lot of things on the experience in the drive-thru. Messages came out, I guess due to the shareholder lawsuit against TKO. The shareholders who were accusing Vince McMahon and TKO of being in cahoots, that, what is a motorcycle or something outside?
They're coming to get you.
That the sale to TKO was kind of, wouldn't you know who won the pony? It was a work.
Wouldn't you know who won the company?
And there wasn't a fair bidding process, and other people who early on I thought may have been bigger players, like Liberty Media, they felt like something funny was happening, and it turns out there was something going on.
Well, and Mark Shapiro, and this is the thing about discovery and lawsuits and this newfangled electronic communication. Besides for Jack Pfeffer back in the old days of wrestling, nobody kept anything on paper, even the limited amount of things that they would reveal on paper that Pfeffer kept, because Pfeffer was a paper keeper. But now there's all the electronic communications, the texts, the emails. Your Honor, these here crooks here are busted because they get the evidence right there in front of them. And the text came out that Mark Shapiro, I can't remember what his title is, but he's one of the head muckety mucks.
Number 2.
With Ari Emanuel. He's number 2.
Yeah, Ari's number 1. Mark Shapiro's number 2.
That's right. And I mean, he feels like shit right now, I'll tell you that. Because he was texting his close associates there in the big flywheel they've got, what was going to happen 9 months to a year before it happened when Vince retired the first time. He told them that, yeah, Stephanie and Nick are going to run the company for X amount of months, and then Vince is going to come back, and he might have to bring a new board with him, and then he's either going to take it private or we're going to do the deal. Hey, the courtship is on. I mean, do grown men speak to each other that way? Especially in incriminating texts. The courtship is on.
Hollywood agents? Absolutely.
Christ on a cracker.
Have you ever met an agent? Ooh.
Thankfully, no. I've never been agented. I understand a lot of times it doesn't end well. But he called it, and that's exactly what happened. And he had been communicating this to his people inside Endeavor and the whole 9 yards. And while it was going on, and then it's saying some wishy-washy things in public about it. And then that was their plan. And going back, you and I, Brian, on the show at various points identified some elements of pony winning going on at certain times, but they had the whole thing fucking plotted from the start, and now they've basically been outed. Now, you being more of a versed person in the area of litigation than I am, because my brain explodes. The shareholders and the people bringing this, the spurned paramours of the purchasing world, have brought this suit on behalf of the shareholders because they said, well, they didn't give it a fair sale process and the shareholders could have got more money. Well, they proved the process wasn't fair, but how can you prove damages when the fucking stock is worth twice as much as it was when they started the scam? You see what I'm saying here?
Yeah, and they had an exchange, I don't know how this came up in the Discovery, between a couple of executives from Liberty Media, who I would have thought would have been the big players here in the States, at least. And one of them said, the exact quote, "Looks like they have been cooking this one up for a while." And the other one replied, "Yup, pre-wired." So people in the industry were saying, yeah, Endeavor and Vince McMahon set out to do this. When Vince McMahon left, the idea that they all knew Stephanie and Nick will be the face of the company and Vince will come back and they'll get rid of whatever board members they need to get rid of so Vince can have complete control. And he's going to say publicly that he has to do this in order to sell the company because he knew where he wanted it to go. The question is, what's going to happen now?
Well, and here's the important thing, the only thing that didn't go according to plan, Smithers, was that Vince made this deal because that way he was going to be the number 2 guy. He was going to be more important in TKO than Dana White. He more important, higher up on the fucking bullshit corporate chain of command they all make up for themselves to spend more money on each other. They're greedy, lining their pockets. They fucking should burn in hell. But nevertheless, Vince was going to be like number 2, number 3 in the whole enchilada of the $25 billion corporation. They didn't know that the Janelle Grant head pooping case was going to hit the news like gangbusters and run him off again. That time, that one was not a work.
You know, it really makes you wonder, too, if they were making public comments that weren't necessarily true or truthful about Vince McMahon and the company and the future, how true are they now when they say Vince has nothing to do with anything with the company?
I think Vince has burnt his goodwill with the Hollywood agents. Again, what was the words of Betty Davis to a fellow movie star actress who was getting run around by her husband? Is the fucking you're getting worth the fucking you're getting? Vince gave them a big black eye right at the start, and they excommunicated him, at least publicly, but Vince has gone to great pains to do whatever the fuck he's doing with this new company, and he's very rarely seen or referred to and never live at the shows, and they've seen that the flywheel will keep on flying and big flywheels keep on turning with Hunter and whoever the fuck else. And I don't think they're in love with him as much as they once were and convinced he had to be the key to the thing.
Now think about what TKO really did. I mean, the creation of TKO. All the debt that Endeavor had, they put on TKO. So that's on WWE and UFC. And that's why it's going to be nonstop commercializing everything. And there's nothing wrong with that to a degree. But everyone notices it. When everyone's pointing out nonstop sponsorships, commercials in the middle of commercials, you got a problem, and they need to do that. Because that's the only way they're going to get away from all their debt until they sell it to the Saudis, which will be the next thing.
I agree.
But when Vince McMahon, if the case goes away with Janelle Grant at any point in the next year, you don't think he's going to instantly be back involved with WWE?
I don't really think so. Because, just to be honest, they still don't. It's like in the old days when they quit trusting Tommy Rich to rent a car on the Ohio tour because he was wrecking them all and it was ruining it for the boys. I don't know if they can trust him again. Not only the public image to the fans that go to the arenas, they would, I'm sure, cheer Vince, but the sponsors, the stainlings longer there in the memory of big corporations, do we want to be involved with, the last we heard of this guy, he was shitting on people. And do you trust him again? Like, is there anything else we ought to know, Vince? Even though you're fucking 80? Anything you've been up to lately? They don't know. I don't think it's necessary. I think the younger McMahon generation is going to be spotlighted just fine without Vince.
Well, we will stay on top of this story, see what more we can find out about the shareholder lawsuit. Lots more will be coming out. Brandon Thurston's been extensively covering it. So whatever comes out in Discovery will be, or whatever comes out publicly, will be something we talk about here on the show. We'll see what happens. Jim, what has become a requested holiday tradition or New Year tradition, I have been sent the results of the 2025 Korean Wrestling Awards. I don't know if you remember this from last year.
Oh, yeah, this was quite popular with our audience.
Last year, Jon Moxley almost swept the worst awards. Everything. Worst gimmick, worst move, worst push, worst match, worst wrestler. Everything was Jon Moxley.
That's why when you first brought it up, I was like, oh, this is going to be off the wall. And it came to find out that the South Korean folks had more of a grip on reality than most people over here in the United States of America.
Yeah, I guess this would be exclusively South Korean. I don't know if the North Korea wrestling fans get to participate in this.
They got other troubles.
They have other internet. Jim, the best male wrestler of the year, John Cena.
That's not controversial because when you think about it, all of the shows that he was on this year drew appreciably, proportionally bigger houses and gates and crowds and sold more tickets, or the big event was widely viewed, whatever. So he was featured in all the main events, blah, blah, blah. That's a non-controversial choice.
The female wrestler of the year is Io Sky. The tag.
Okay.
Oh,
I'm just going to say everybody loves Io Sky. So who am I to argue? Not my cup of tea. But at least she doesn't go out there and shit her pants and, miss the table every night.
The best team of the year is The Vision.
Ev Bronson Reed and Braun Breaker.
The entire group, I believe, is counted as one for this example.
They ought to have a goddamn big 6-man tag or whatever the fuck. I would say that based on, again, prominence of position on the card, that would be correct because all the other tag teams and all the companies are just doing an endless 4-way in the middle of the card somewhere.
All right, at some point we may have to start running through these. Best babyface, John Cena. Best heel, Dominic Mysterio.
Again, not controversial there. Dominic Mysterio. He's done a wonderful fucking job. He's over like crazy. The people love to hate him, as they used to say.
The best champion, John Cena. The best worker, AJ Styles. The best match, John Cena versus AJ Styles.
Hold on now. Wait a minute. I was about to say, now I'm seeing a pattern here. Have we got Cena and AJ's press agent? I don't know. Why wouldn't the South Koreans, it seems like they'd be into Gunther as best worker. That's what I was going to say there. I would have thought that.
I don't know why you would have thought that. That's a Random pick there.
Because he's the best worker. And then they're kind of more serious.
Let's go back to this. The best segment. John Cena sells his soul to The Rock and ruthlessly attacks Cody Rhodes and turns heel.
Ruthlessly.
The best moment. John Cena turns heel by selling his soul to The Rock and mercilessly attacking Cody Rhodes.
Without mercy.
The best feud. Let me get your thoughts on this. CM Punk versus Seth Rollins.
Well, I'm glad we got somebody besides Cena and AJ and Cena there. I can't argue with that. Because they had the extra special little soupçon of we don't like each other for real into that. Punk and Drew was the year before, right? Punk and Drew.
That's
Sounds
right.
like a fucking Halloween beverage.
That's right.
So yes, and also we broke that Cena pattern we were developing here a minute ago.
Jim, the best catchphrase. The last time is now. John Cena. The best newcomer, Joe Hendry.
Thought you were going to say John Cena. Well, again, Joe Hendry's very popular, but is he the best newcomer? Is he just the newcomer that everybody cheers when he pops up and doesn't really have to do anything?
May have answered your own question there. The best mic worker, John Cena.
God.
The best non-wrestler, Paul Heyman.
At least Cena wasn't going to win that one. Well, I mean, you can't argue with that. I don't even know anybody that's even close to second place.
The most improved, Dom Mysterio. The most notable, whatever this is, the most notable, Austin Theory.
Okay.
For 2025, off that one return, I guess.
Hold on, wait a minute. I'm going to the American Heritage Dictionary. Now, it may be different. I don't have the South Korean Heritage Dictionary, which may change things somewhat, but hold on. Obtuse, oblivious. What was the word I'm looking for?
Notable.
Notable. Nose cone. Notable. Worthy of note or notice. Remarkable. Distinguished. Eminent. A person of distinction. Well, that's like a consolation prize.
All right. The best move, Braun Breaker's spear.
Hard to argue with that.
The best gimmick, John Cena, the last real champion. The biggest news of the year, John Cena turns heel by selling his soul to The Rock. The best return, Brock Lesnar. What do you think of that? Best return?
Well, now that we've broken again the Cena stretch, and again, somebody is really a fan of John's. Who else came back and made such a stir doing it in a couple of different times? Because he only shows up often enough that when he comes back, he's gone long enough. Oh, shit, he's back again. So every time you see him, it's a comeback or a return. So, and then he just kills somebody. So, yeah, I could see that.
The best entrance, John Cena, My Time Is Now. The best brand, WWE Raw. The best event, SummerSlam Night 2, headlined by John Cena versus Cody Rhodes. The best part-timer, John Cena.
John Cena!
The best booker, interesting here, Shawn Michaels, NXT.
Oh, God, out of left field, that came.
The best main event, the Elimination Chamber match, which John Cena won and then sold his soul to The Rock. Best face turn, Jacob Fatu. Best heel turn, John Cena.
John Cena!
And the best entrance, the Seth Rollins leg fake-out Money in the Bank cash-in. That was a good moment. That's the best of list. Let's go to the...
By the way, who would have been the one who dominated that list, in your opinion? Is there one clear standout, or was it kind of spread around fairly evenly?
The Never Seen 17, or whatever the hell that was. Jim, let's go to the Moxleys. The worst of list for the Korean Wrestling Awards for 2025. The worst male performer. Any guesses?
Jon Moxley.
Jey Uso.
Oh, he won to Moxley. Yeet.
The worst female performer, Mercedes Moné.
Boom, Mercedes Moxley. That's her new name.
Worst tag team, not tag team, worst team of the year, the Death Riders.
Well, at least they're still representing Moxley at the top of the bill here.
Worst babyface, Jey Uso. Worst heel, Mercedes Moné.
God, so I detect a pattern also in the other direction. No matter who did it, if it's good, it was John Cena. And no matter who did it, if it's bad, it's either Mercedes or fucking Uso.
The worst champion, New Japan Pro Wrestling Strong Champion, Mercedes Moné. The worst worker, Jey Uso.
God damn it.
The worst match of the year, Gunther retires John Cena. Let's stop there for a moment.
Oh, wait a minute. Oh, come on now. That was the worst wrestling match of the year. I see favoritism there.
Hey, listen, there are people who hate that finish. Looking at the best of awards and all the awards that John Cena just won, you can imagine the people who voted on this hated that finish. Let's go back to this here, Jim. Worst segment, Triple H provokes booing audience during Cena match retirement. The worst moment of the year,
he got in the way of John.
John Cena taps out. The worst moment of the year. The worst feud, Jey Uso versus Gunther. The worst catchphrase, yeet, Jey Uso. The worst newcomer, Julia. That's an interesting pick. What do you think of that?
Out of nowhere. Poor Julia. She must think, what the fuck did I do? I haven't seen enough of her to comment, but as far as newcomer, if it means somebody that I didn't see before last year, she ain't by any means the worst.
The worst mic worker, Jey Uso. The worst non-wrestler, Travis Scott.
I think we can all agree on that.
I think so. The most overrated, Jey Uso. The most underrated, Drew McIntyre. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, there at least, again, there's a flash of brilliance in the middle of the bias here towards certain people that I saw somebody saying that the other day. Drew needs to win something. He's been so good in everything he's been involved in, but at some point, the guy that's complaining that he gets screwed all the time needs to win a big one so that when he gets screwed out of it, he can go back to that, because otherwise it wears off. Does that make sense?
It does. Jim, the Christian Award, and if you remember, we didn't know what that was last year. Apparently it's the most pitiful of the year.
Okay, I thought it was when they were dunked in the fucking pond and blessed at the same time.
To your previous point, Drew McIntyre. Isn't that interesting? Most underrated and most pitiful.
I guess that's the same award Steve Keirn would have won at the 1987 Crockett Cup. Poor Steve, he's so pitiful. He's a great worker, but goddamn, he hates his life.
Jim, the worst move? Jey Uso's spear. The worst gimmick? The belt collector, Mercedes Moné. The worst news story? John Cena taps out. Not Hulk Hogan dying or anyone dying or anything bad.
No.
John Cena taps out, the worst news story of the year. Worst entrance, Travis Scott.
Narrowly beating out Jey Uso.
Worst brand, AEW. Worst event, WrestlePalooza. The main event where Lesnar squashed John Cena. The worst part-timer, it's funny, I hadn't thought of her this way. The worst part-timer, Mercedes Moné.
Wow.
Do you see her as a part-timer?
I'll see her always as a two-timer.
Whatever you want to say,
well,
she works all the time. We always see her.
Well, when you think, well, that's all the time is twice a week now, so that's part-time to me, so I'm not one to judge.
All right, well, the worst booker, Triple H.
Ooh, South Korea not happy with Triple H.
The worst main event, Gunther versus Cena. And finally, the worst face turn, John Cena.
Wow! He must have loved heel Cena. Because all the heel Cena stuff was the big deal, but that was the worst. He wanted him to continue on pillaging and burning villages.
You say he. It was a voting body. It wasn't just like the Korean Dave Meltzer writing these up or anything.
I got the idea there's one body writing this up some kind of way.
Why do you think that? There was voting here. Obviously, it's a united culture, united around their hatred of John Moxley and Jey Uso and Mercedes Moné.
And united by their absolute worship of John Cena and anything he does.
Oh, big missed opportunity for TKO to do John Cena in Korea for the retirement tour.
Well, that's another thing. You know, when they gave an award, a fan award to Tony Khan the other week, he got on the air or on the Twitter or whatever he got on, whatever he was already on, and he thanked him for it. So they ought to get Mark Shapiro to break his busy texting schedule to come out and thank the South Koreans for this fine publicity.
What do you think about Braun Breaker's spear winning best move and Jey Uso's spear winning worst move? The spear won both awards.
Considering the look of both of them, I think they're properly placed there.
Well, there it is, Jim. Those are the picks, the annual picks we look at from the Korean wrestling community. And of course, many of the listeners may have their own picks. Maybe it's your nose. Maybe it's your wrestling. Maybe it's what's going to happen in the big game. And if you got those picks and you want to win those prizes, well, Jim, you know a place we could send everyone.
Well, I can pick it up from here because right now you need to go to Prize Picks because that's where you're going to make money. And not only are you going to make money, but you're going to get the satisfaction of being right. Let's say, for example, it's a satisfaction you don't ever get around your home when no matter what you do, you can never get the praise of being right. But honey, I was right. No, you weren't. You were wrong. And you go to your job and you can never get the praise of being right. Because you always say, but boss, I was right. Oh no, you were wrong. But when you go to Prize Picks, it's like buying a whore. They'll just tell you anything you want to hear.
It's not like that, and that's not what it is at all. At all. No, that's not it.
Well, see, because if it's good to be right, it always feels good to be right in life and on Prize Picks. That's what it says. And if you want to feel good, well, you go hire this whore called Prize Picks. Because Prize Picks is going to get you the opportunity.
Not a whore.
Well, they're going to get you an opportunity, though.
They will get you an opportunity. Maybe.
They've got early payouts. A whore doesn't have that.
No.
Boy, I'll tell you what, try to get your money early from a whore. Prize Picks is even better than a whore because if your player gets off to a hot start, then haven't we all with a whore?
I don't understand
but you've got the option to cash out the winnings before the game even finishes. Imagine if you could apply that to the other scenario that I'm talking about metaphorically.
Well, let's ignore that scenario. However, you said when you get the money from the whores, are you the pimp now in a situation? Why are they giving you money?
That's what I'm saying. This is even better because otherwise it'd cost you money. But with Prize Picks,
they carrying change.
They can blow you and pay you at the same time.
No, they don't. Metaphorically, maybe in a sense. Metaphorically, let's be nice.
You're going to feel good when you're right because you can pick your favorite players and win when you hit your projections. No draft required. You don't have to wait till next year's draft to keep playing fantasy. See, fantasy comes back into it. And your whore from Richmond brings you the fantasy of the social feeds feature where you can share Prize Picks with your friends and copy lineups from winners with a single click and share candid photography from that English girl you met in Manchester that one weekend.
What?
Copy lineups you like or use them as inspiration for your own picks. You can even follow Prize Picks partners, and you can tail or fade your picks. See, tail comes back into it again. And if you don't want to pay, you just fade right into the background. But on Prize Picks, how you play is up to you. They're not judgmental. If you've got a kink, if you want flexibility, you can choose Flex Play. That's where the girl that brings your money can bend over and stick her head all the way between her legs and up above her spinal column.
That's not what it is. It's not hot and flexible. It's Flex Play.
Yes, and you can get paid even if one of your picks misses. And if you want the biggest payouts, go for the Power Play. That thing's so big, it requires a 9-volt battery to power that son of a bitch. That's how big it is. No matter your play, Prize Picks is a great way to put your takes to the test. You can get in on the action now in all 50 states. You can do all kinds of things that look to me questionably legal, because picking the same player up to 3 times in the same lineup, that's putting a lot of pressure on that young man, playing 3 different positions like that. But Prize Picks puts you the users first. That's what they do, and they accept most pager payment methods. They accept most major payment methods.
There'll be a manifold match.
Yes, and they'll pay you and you'll pay them, and then some way or another, that whore from Richmond will make out okay. Right now, download the Prize Picks app today and use the code JCE. Is that the code that we're using? Yes.
Yes, it
is. The code JCE to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. So you just put in $5 that you found on the couch somewhere, and then they're going to give you $50 on top of that. $55. I'm telling you, I know this girl. She'll do pretty much anything. Prize Picks. The code is JCE to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. And if somebody asks you any questions, just say you want a lawyer and plead the fifth.
Again, there are elements of the truth in there. Read between the lines, ladies and gentlemen. Have a good time. And
you're going to have a good time.
Have a good time with Prize Picks and the picking
That's where I first found the number. It said, for a good time, call.
All right, whatever your fantasy sports are, may not be everyone else's, but once again, Prize Picks, promo code JCE. Jim, as we move on here with the show, I have a question, a very interesting one, sent in via email to CornyDriveThru@gmail.com. This was sent by Vatsalia.
WWE. Who? Where? What?
Vatsalia. Here's Vatsalia's question.
Mm-hmm.
WWE's current main event scene consists of CM Punk, Cody Rhodes, Jade Cargill, and Blake Monroe and Ricky Starks in NXT. All of them are AEW alums. What would the status of WWE's main event scene in 2026 be if all of these stars were still in AEW? It's an interesting thought.
The main event scene may be a loose description. That's the individual champions, including NXT, really in the main event scene of WWE is not literally correct. But I get the point of the thing. Is that at one time or another, everybody with these singles belts was over in the other company. To me, it would have damaged WWE's business if Cody had not been there for this story arc of the finishing the story and the blah, blah, blah. And obviously they got a big bounce from Punk, from his comeback and the merchandise that he sells and a couple of different high profile angles. None of the other, who was the rest of the names on the list, Brian? Jade
Cargill, Blake Monroe, and Ricky Starks. Ricky Saints.
What? None of them have, I'm not saying anything about their talent, but they haven't been put in a position, whether they could or not, to make any appreciable difference in the business. So I got to think that the WWE main event scene, or the business would be everybody else in the main event scene, the Drew McIntyres and the Brock Lesnar's and the Logan Pauls and the Braun Breakers and the blah, 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 would still be involved. The business would have been somewhat different in terms of the revenue that Cody at that whole story at the peak and Punk to come back in the big matches he had. It wouldn't be appreciably different because with the giant mass money figures that they're using today and the guaranteed rights fees and blah, 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 it'd be hard if they didn't have 6 guys on the main event roster that they've had to still make an appreciable difference. It's the brand now and the company and it's the show, not the players. So those 2 guys specifically, Punk and Cody, have given them bumps over their already obscenely high bar that they've set for income, but it isn't like a make or break thing. Nobody is anymore, are they?
It's hard to say. I mean, if Cody wasn't there even more so than Punk, that's the one where you really have a tough time picturing what they do for a while. Do they keep things going with Sammy and try to make, Sammy's big babyface run against Roman go a little longer? If there's no Cody, does Rollins have his issues with Roman a little earlier? It would have changed the trajectory of a lot of things. Drew McIntyre was kind of floating around, not doing anything.
But nothing was the difference, I guess, of what I'm saying between the business they did and empty buildings. They weren't going to be, they weren't going to be suffering regardless.
But as Cody started chasing the bloodline, it just so happens the bloodline got to the hottest point they ever were. And again, there's a lot of drama. The Usos, would they have elevated Jey Uso a year earlier, 2 years earlier? I mean, it's the best thing for WWE. They got Cody and Punk.
Yeah.
Because they need those kind of guys who could slot into the top because there aren't that many.
And I don't know they could have elevated Jey any earlier. The people did that for him first because they liked the silly yeet thing.
Again, an interesting question, notwithstanding any issues in AEW or anything. If everyone had stayed there and everyone was happy, who does WWE have ready the last few years instead of Punk and Cody? Like, you brought up Braun Breaker. This would have been a few years ago. He wasn't ready to be pushed to that point yet.
No, it would have been appreciably more difficult for them to get the great matches and business and programs they got, etc., out of what they got. That's why I'm saying they gave them a bump. But at this point, so much of it business-wise is guaranteed. They could have, I think maybe the interest level they brought rather than the revenue they generated is probably more important because it kept WWE from losing fans' interest while they were going through all this other bullshit with the ownership and the sale and the new players and blah, blah.
On the topic of wrestlers, stars in WWE that they could slot in, let me get your thoughts on the rumors about Chris Jericho. We've talked about him a little bit in the past, but now there have been photos going around of Chris interviewing people on his podcast. And when people see him in shape, their first thoughts are, he's going to WWE. He cares again. He got himself into really good shape. That is legitimately the reaction we've seen from people. What are your thoughts on how to use Chris Jericho or returning Chris Jericho if he's in shape, motivated, won't have a hissy fit if they don't go with his ideas, and willing to do business? What business is there to do with Chris Jericho in 2026?
Well, I think I've said this months ago when we were talking about the potential of it. That is the best use of Jericho right now for everybody. Tony is, if he keeps him for some reason in AEW, which he's not. I'm just saying if he were to, then he would be paying him to contribute almost nothing. Because in that environment now, it's not like anybody's going to really make a big difference in that environment right now. But Jericho's way past stale over there, and he didn't really fit in with the whole thing, and he's getting older to blah, blah, blah. So Tony's saving a bunch of money. He can pay some other lazy, broken down Japanese legend to fucking come in and stink the joint out. Jericho has history in WWE with that fan base and with the company, and they have footage, and they can monetize all that footage again by joining a Chris Jericho return with a, I don't know if a DVD now is uppermost in their minds, but some kind of documentary project and the blah, 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 and the merchandising and if they call it a retirement tour, or even since they've already done that, just building up to his retirement and the Hall of Fame. And so that's, you make Jericho a TV character that works a very limited schedule. Maybe he doesn't even show up at TV every week, but you get him established first with whatever it's going to be and give him a rivalry or two, something hopefully at the start that he can look good in, and then maybe something to get somebody over, and then maybe a little fucking run for whoever's going to be the retirement match or whatever. And I don't know that, Brian, you tell me, would it be a landmark event if anybody beat Chris Jericho in the WWE in 2026 or 2027? Is that passing a torch? Or is it just another bummer? Would you just want Jericho to have 2, 3, maybe 4 matches over the course of a year and a half on premium live events, and maybe a television appearance or two to promote same, and have him win most of them, not all of them, but the last one probably definitely? What do you think?
I don't know. Does Gunther get any benefit if he retires another guy, whether it's AJ Styles or after that, Chris Jericho?
Well, but I think, aren't they, hopefully they were doing that to lead to Brock. And if Gunther retires Brock, then that he might as well retire the retiring gimmick, because how do you top that?
What happens if he doesn't, though? Does it kill the whole thing if Brock leaves beating Gunther?
I don't, Brock, if they have Brock and Gunther, Brock ain't going to beat Gunther. I do not think. They either have Brock and Gunther beats Brock, or they don't have Brock and Gunther. So, point being, I don't know that to retire Jericho at this point, since he hadn't been there in fucking 5 years or whatever anyway, and he's been somewhere else, and people have beat him, and I don't know if it's the same gloss on it.
Well, we'll see what happens. A lot of people assume it'll be the Royal Rumble in Saudi Arabia. From pictures I saw earlier today, they're still building the stadium where they'll be housing.
I know, I saw that too. And it's like they're still building the fucking thing. And in 3 weeks or whatever, they're going to have 50,000 people there watching the show.
Because they have slave labor.
I guess they overtime requirement.
It's because Saudi Arabia still has slave labor. I think that's a big part of the issue there. But
as they're not building a pyramid.
Well, Jim, speaking of pyramids, a real quick aside since you brought it up. When talking about Ric Flair's cameos, you brought up a nickname he had for his ex-wife. Do you remember what it was?
Cleopatra.
Why did he call her that?
That was Beth's nickname, just because she was the queen.
Queen of what?
So the queen of the Nile, the queen of the
Egypt,
the Castle Flair, whatever the.
Was she an Egyptian?
A lot of people were like, "That's where he got his first trouble with the Egyptians."
That's what I saw.
But no, that was legitimately a pet name that Flair had for his wife Beth. It was Cleo, and
she got 50%, and now I hate the Egyptians.
Yeah.
Woo!
What kind of stupid motherfucker are you to want to get married? Automatically, half of everything is hers.
All right, I had to bring that up because I didn't even think about that when you said Cleopatra, and I found that to be so funny. It's a joke that never ends. Jim, as we continue on here with the show, Jim, I have a list of Dave Meltzer's top-rated matches of 2025. Apparently, I just saw Oh,
I
go
can
ahead.
hardly wait to hear. I can hardly wait to hear what Dave has spent the most time obsessing over in the past year.
And as we are doing this, he's on Twitter and kind of with the same topic. A few notes about 2025. It was the year with the most 4-star matches in history. It was the biggest year for attendance at major shows worldwide in at least 2 decades. The first is subjective. The second isn't. And then a follow-up.
Dun, 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 dun.
The same city that had the most 4-star matches in 2025 also drew the most fans in 2025. That in no way means 4-star matches draw money on their own. They don't. But in that specific case, it also wasn't coincidental. So is he saying they did draw?
I don't know. Some way or another, you can never disprove anything that Dave says because he leaves everything open, kind of like a all-night 7-Eleven.
Jim, the following is a list of 5-star matches in 2025. 5 stars for many years was the very best. Nothing could be better.
Nothing could be better. Nothing could be finer than to get 5 stars in Carolina if you flare.
And we're going to start with the most recent ones. Jon Moxley versus Kyle Fletcher, the Continental Classic Final at AEW World's End, December 27th.
Oh, that's where he almost killed poor Kyle.
That's right.
Okay, well, that deserved 5. I bet Kyle saw more than 5 stars.
Jim, from November 23rd, Commander versus World Historic Welterweight Champion Mascara Dorada at CMLL Domingo Familiar. Also on the list?
Yeah.
TNT Champion Kyle Fletcher versus Mark Briscoe, no DQ match, Full Gear, November 22nd.
Oh, that was the bloodbath with the thumbtacks and the razor blades and the sabers and tigers and lions. Yeah, okay.
That's correct. Also from the same show, 5 stars, AEW World Tag Team Champions Bro Dito versus FTR.
Yeah, I remember that one too.
A couple weeks earlier, AEW Dynamite, November 12th, men's Blood and Guts match. Almost a month earlier, AEW World Tag Team Champions Bro Dito versus Okada and Takeshita at Wrestle Dream.
Oh, good Christ. I mean, we're getting egregious now. With he still tries to cover up for anything that Okada's involved in. At this point, shouldn't that be? Give up the cause. Are you dying on that hill? It's over for the guy. If he ever had anything, it's lost.
Back to the 5-star matches in 2025, Jim. August 29th, CMLL Grand Prix Internationals Torneo Cybernetico.
What?
On August 24th, it was a lights-out cage match at Forbidden Door, the Death Riders and the Young Bucks versus Darby Allin, Tanahashi, Omega, Ospreay, and Kota Ibushi.
Wasn't that when Tanahashi walked out to the ring? It looked like that somebody had surgically reattached his legs in catering.
That was a horrible match. And Ibushi didn't look that good either, of course.
But I'm starting to notice a pattern. Either AEW or CMLL, but nothing else anywhere at all.
I'll speak too soon. August 3rd, 5 stars for WWE SummerSlam's Cody Rhodes versus WWE Champion John Cena Street Fight.
Well, see, there you go. He had to put one of them in there.
Which was a couple days after John Cena turned babyface in a promo and just said, I was wrong. Let's go have a street fight. Jim, July 31st, TNT Champion Dustin Rhodes versus Kyle Fletcher. Street Fight on AEW Collision. From CMLL Viernes Espectacular, or something like that, I apologize, July 25th, Mascara Dorada versus Neon in a Torneo La Renata de Plata finals.
And Dave has something for Mascara Dorito, doesn't he? He's got something for that young fella.
Jim, June 20th, from CMLL Fantastica Mania, Bandito and Hologram versus Mascara Dorada and Mystico.
Yeah. Okay.
From CMLL Martes Populares, June 17th, Ring of Honor World Champion Bandito versus Mascara Dorada.
Is Dave a native of South Korea? He's doing the same fucking thing.
Jim, May 25th, it was AEW Double or Nothing for Anarchy in the Arena. Another WWE one, April 25th on SmackDown. It was the Motor City Machine Guns versus the Tag Team Champion Street Profits versus DIY in a tables, ladders, and chairs match.
The second WWE match on this list, we're already all the way back to April, and it's underneath Tag Team TV match with Garbage Rules.
Let's make it a third match. From April 20th, WrestleMania 41, the Women's Champion Io Sky versus Rhea Ripley versus Bianca Belair.
Giving equal time to the women. They can have garbage matches too.
Jim, AEW Revolution, March 9th, Will Ospreay versus Kyle Fletcher, steel cage match. That match went too far too, actually, now that I remember it.
Yeah, well, one of them went all the way out since then. So maybe that's from going too far.
Jim, the same night, AEW Revolution, March 9th, AEW International Champion Takeshita versus Kenny Omega. 5 stars. As well as the Hollywood ending match, World's Champion Toni Storm versus Mariah May. 3 5-star matches on that one show. Amazing.
Wow, it's almost like it's an AEW show or something.
From March 3rd, Jim, Loser Leaves Town match at Stardom Nighter in Corcoran Hall, Saya Kamitani versus Tam Nakano.
And at this point, you wonder why that anybody can possibly buy into what Dave is doing these days. That it's just so, he gets so ridiculous with this unknown niche fucking nobody's wrestling with the girls. And this is somehow greater than the major companies that actually have trained professionals every once in a while engaging in a wrestling match.
Jim, March 1st, Elimination Chamber, Kevin Owens versus Sami Zayn, unsanctioned match. Followed by AEW Grand Slam Australia, February 15th, Omega and Ospreay versus Takeshita and Fletcher. Fletcher may be on this list more than anyone, it looks like.
I think he's the American version of Dorito.
He's Australian.
Well,
Jim,
close.
2 more 5-star matches. IWGP Global Champion Yota Tsuji versus Gabe Kidd at New Japan Pro Wrestling New Beginning in Osaka, February 11th. And finally, AZM or Azumi, or however you pronounce that, AZM Mayu Amasaki and Starlight Kid versus Natsupoi, Sayori Anoa.
Oh, for fuck's sake. Are you just having a stroke? What are you doing? Are you underwater? You're singing opera underwater.
Stardom's 14th anniversary Supreme Fight on February 2nd. Amazing. No 5-star matches in January. That's news. But Jim, that's not the end here. More than 5 stars. Here are the matches that got more than 5 stars. December 10th, Winter is Coming, AEW Dynamite. Kyle Fletcher versus Mike Bailey, 5 1/4 stars.
Oh, Jesus.
September 20th, All Out. Hangman Adam Page versus Kyle Fletcher, 5 1/4 stars. AEW Unified Champion Okada versus Takeshita versus Mascara Dorada at All Out, 5 1/4 stars. Suri versus Suri at Stardom, The Conversion.
Wait a minute, it was Surrey versus Surrey? Or the Surrey with a fringe on top? What is going on here?
Sareee versus Syuri. Sari versus Sari. This is at The Conversion, 4 1/4 stars. 5 1/4. I keep saying 4. 5 1/4 stars. From AEW Dynamite Summer Blockbuster, June 11th, Swerve Strickland versus Will Ospreay, 5 1/4 stars. Fujita versus Yo from the Best of the Super Juniors final, 5 1/4 stars. Saya Kamitani versus Tam Nakano, career versus career, at Stardom's All-Star Grand Queendom, 5.25 stars.
Now I know what's the matter with Dave. It ran him absolutely out of his fucking rabbit ass mind watching this fucking bullshit over and over again until he's like a prisoner of war that's been fucking programmed.
Jim, Kenny Omega versus Gabe Kidd at Wrestle Dynasty on January 5th, 5.25 stars. And now we move up a notch.
Oh, Jesus.
The IWGP World Champion Zack Sabre Jr. versus Konosuke Takeshita at New Japan King of Pro Wrestling, October 13th, 5.5 stars.
Looks like Take wrestling a Q-tip.
Mystico versus MJF, Mask versus Title, CMLL Anniversary Show, 5.5 stars.
We watched that and liked it, but good God.
Bandito, the Ring of Honor World Champion versus Hechicero at Ring of Honor Death Before Dishonor, August 29th, 5.5 stars. Jon Moxley versus Hangman Page, Texas Deathmatch, AEW All In, July 12th, 5.5 stars.
Just beat me in the head with a club.
From the same show, the Young Bucks versus Swerve and Ospreay, 5.5 stars. Hangman Adam Page versus Will Ospreay in the Owen Hart Tournament Finals at Double or Nothing, May 25th, 5.5 stars. Takeshita versus Ospreay, the final of the Owen Hart Tournament, semifinals, at AEW Dynamite Spring Break, 5.5 stars. And Dave Meltzer's top-rated match of 2025.
Drum roll, please.
Bandito, the Ring of Honor World Champion, versus Konosuke Takeshita, July 11th, Super Card of Honor, 5.75 stars.
On a show nobody saw with two guys that can't fucking talk and nobody gives a shit. And
5.75.
I would actually say, I would say if they were walking through the mall or down the street, nobody would know who the fuck they were, but Bandito's got an excuse.
Well, they say 5.75 stars is just as good as 6.
Well, why are we arguing then? It's just as good.
Obviously, everyone in the world had a great year except for WWE.
Yeah, except for anybody else except one company in Mexico, one company in America, and a bunch of unknown women in Japan.
Well, Jim, after hearing a list like that, you may want to get a good night's sleep.
If I'd like to lay down, I'll tell you, I don't know whether I can sleep. I'd be tossing and turning, tossing and tossing and turning, thinking about what in the world is the matter with Dave Meltzer mentally. And folks, if you'd like to know what in the world is the matter with Dave Meltzer mentally, the last thing you want's a good night's sleep because you're going to be staying up a long time. But if you want a good night's sleep because you don't give a shit about Dave Meltzer's mental state, let me tell you what we're going to do. We're going to save you some money on the absolute most scintillating, sexy surface that you will ever supine yourself on and lay yourself down for a good night's rest, a rejuvenation, a renovation. You know, Brian, all day long, you're up on your feet, you're walking around, gravity is taking its toll. It's dragging you down. It's a heaviness. It's weighing you down. You feel sluggish. By the end of the day, you can barely lift your own weight. It feels like that the weight of the world is on your shoulders, but you lay down on a Helix sleep mattress and instantly that weight drops off your shoulders and drops through the specially formulated mattress and collects in what amounts to a bedpan underneath your bed. It's an apparatus that collects all your worries, all your heaviness. And then at the end of the day, you got all of that shit in the bedpan. And then the next morning when you get up, you just open the window and you toss away your troubles like you would toss piss out of a bedpan out the window.
Again, this
just
may
a
not be,
a lot of mailmen are not happy about the Helix mattress.
This is not a good example. We're talking about beds, not bedpans. And of course, the finest beds, we have them here in this house and we love them. And I know they have them over at Castle Cornette. The finest beds. Everyone loves their Helix.
Well, it's not a bed, it's a mattress. Now, you can put this mattress on a shitty bed if you want to. You don't have to spend even a shitty bed frame will feel good with a Helix mattress on it. Or you can get a nice bed frame that won't collapse whenever you're bumping uglies with your old lady. And in the middle of the night, suddenly one of the legs cracks and boom. And now you've got to sleep on a slant. And I'll tell you, that pisses you off, especially if it's already like 4 o'clock in the morning and you got to get up early and you're sleeping at a goddamn slant, not even a straight slant, but a crooked slant because it was a leg on the right-hand side. Because at the moment of, well, nevertheless, folks, this won't happen because you can just put your Helix mattress on a floor. As a matter of fact, you can put it on a floor. You can put it on the wall if you'd like to and just sleep leaning backwards. Because, folks, I'm telling you, as soon as your shoulders hit this canvas, so to speak, you're going to be out like a light. And the returns, if you need to, and exchanges, if you need to, are all covered with the Happy with Helix guarantee, and it's seamless. That means you will not be tied to this mattress until you've officially approved it and paid for it. Then they're going to come and they're going to bind you down to it so you can't lose it. The Happy with Helix.
No one is going to bind you down to anything. Why don't we get back to the Happy with Helix and talk about that?
Well, now, between consenting adults, once you purchase this thing, you can do what you want in your own home.
That's right.
The Happy with Helix guarantee offers a risk-free, customer-first experience where you get to be the first one to sleep on your own mattress. And then they're going to have some other people come in every once in a while and try it out just on they'll call first. But they want people to know about the thing. So you can tell them, yes, I've been sleeping on it for 3 or 4 weeks now. And Uncle Tom came in and we bumped uglies on it and he enjoyed it. So you will too. And then those people will leave your home. You're going to be completely satisfied.
You're going to be in a normal situation again. These added people, there's always more people being added to these stories. They won't be involved. It'll be you and your people.
There's a lot of people. A lot of people were involved in the study that Helix ran that found that 82% of those involved saw an increase in their deep sleep cycle while sleeping on a Helix mattress. And folks, it's where the Supreme Court has already sent down the ruling. If you're in a deep sleep cycle, you cannot be convicted of crimes you commit because you're not in conjunction of your functions. You're not in possession of your right faculties. So once you get on this Helix mattress, if they arrest you, you just bring in a note from your doctor saying you've been in deep sleep cycles and you're off scot-free.
No.
Folks, again.
One last no for everything, and then we got to wrap this up. But ladies and gentlemen, that won't be happening. That's not anything you have to worry about. That is certainly not anything the Supreme Court has ruled on. Back to you, Jim, because I understand we have a great deal with very little extraneous comment, a great deal, and an even more fantastic promo code.
A deal where you can save money, especially you can save on your legal defense and also save on the mattress. It's 27% off site-wide on the New Year sale extended through January the 11th, and 27% off, that is, and then 20% off from the 12th through the 15th. We'll just cover all of our bases there, but you go now, whatever time and day you are in, to Helix, Helix, helixsleep.com/JCE for that large discount that I just enumerated, site-wide on all their fine products. You know, we all love to sleep in Helix mattresses. We want to be just wrapped up and as snug as a bug in a rug and buried on one of these things if we can get it into the coffin. helixsleep.com/JCE, save a bunch of money, and it's seamless.
Helix Sleep. Oh, there you go, a clean one. Nah, it goes right back to it. All right, well, we are here, right back to it, ladies and gentlemen.
Hello, Tiger Da.
Jim, we're going to do a history segment here to wrap things up this week. We're still getting caught up in a lot of things. Next week, we'll have guest the program back on the show, retro figures, and more. But Jim, let's talk some wrestling history. I've been organizing my programs and filing things away recently during our break. And I have in my hand 3 consecutive weeks of programs.
Uh-oh.
May 5th, May 12th, and May 19th, 1953, Dallas, Texas. The May 5th program, being the final one billed as taking place in the Sportatorium for a while, as the Sportatorium had burned down the previous Friday on May 1st. The Tuesday, May 5th show would not take place at the Sportatorium. So these are the programs around the period of time where the Sportatorium in Dallas, Texas burned down.
And now I guess we shouldn't just leave that dangling. And also, it didn't burn down because part of it was still there. They just kind of put the extra wall up and called it a day. But the fire was allegedly, although never proven, set by the opposition promotion because there was a promotional war taking place. And so the established promotion went over to the State Fair Park Arena for a period of time while the world famous Sportatorium was being built back up to what it then became world famous for later on in the world class days.
Well, the May 5th program, again, produced in advance. These were mailed out so people would get them in their mailboxes in advance of the show. The May 5th program, the final one produced for the Sportatorium, although it burned the previous Friday, the 1st. Down at ringside, the Dallas Wrestling War, which has been gradually spreading to neighboring cities, became a full-fledged Texas Wrestling War last week as new promoters in San Antonio and Corpus Christi staged their initial matches with wrestlers furnished by our own promoter, Ed McElmore. Did the fans like the new deal? Well, in San Antonio, promoter Klein racked up the largest wrestling house on record in that city last Monday night, and judging from the write-ups in the San Antonio papers, the reception was enthusiastic. Then last Tuesday, Corpus Christi fans bought out the new arena as proof of their pleasure of the change. Why don't we stop there?
Bought out the new arena. Would that have been, I can't imagine that was the building that we were running in the 80s when I was there, either with World Class or later on when the Clash of Champions with Mascaras and Mick Foley, Cactus Jack was in that building. And what was that? The Memorial Coliseum? Point being, that was a 6,000 seat building. I don't know that it was that old, that it would have been around in the early 50s. And that's the point I was going to make, is that Texas back in those days, when they say, well, the biggest house ever in San Antonio or, sold out in Corpus Christi, it was not a big money, big crowd territory. They weren't like Chicago or Los Angeles or New York or even some of the bigger cities down south where they had histories of drawing these major crowds or outdoor shows or whatever. It was the days of the weekly matches where you drew 2,000 or 3,000 or 1,500 or, whatever. And so they were still in that stage of the game down in Texas at that point. Kind of like Florida.
While promoters McElmore and McLeya were rubbing their hands in high glee at the results of their initial
Come
venture.
on, McLeya.
While they're rubbing their hands at the results of the initial ventures into South Texas, we can picture an entirely different reaction on the part of the boys from the Bayou. As we reported last week, they were more than a little discomforted by the forthright challenge of Roy Dunn against their pseudo-champion, the aging Lou Thez.
Oh!
Now they are hit where it hurts most, their own pocketbooks in their own backyard.
And see, that Roy Dunn was a legitimate shooter from the old days that they had brought in to be their champion because, they were trying to do the old grandstand challenge of how about our guy takes on your guy, and their guy was Thez, so they needed a shooter of their own.
By the way, 1953, the aging Lou Thez.
The aging, yeah. He's still on top 20 years later.
Money talks, and it talks about the only kind of language those boys understand. What exactly the conversation was all about, we don't know. But it must have been something like this. Well, boys, You started this ruckus up in Dallas, and now it looks like the fans all over Texas are about to render a decision on the match. It looks like from here, the decision will be 2 straight falls to Macklemore. The story on page 5 this week gives us only an inkling of what is to come in the way of further developments. But the word from the front office is that the news is startling, and the news is good. Promoter Macklemore has promised that definite tidings would be forthcoming next week. Meanwhile, may we remind you racing fans that the Devil's Bowl changes over to Friday nights this week with time trial. Well, that's off wrestling.
Yeah.
But you can hear they mention page 5 will go there, and they're basically saying next week we're really going to fuck with you. We've now come into your towns, but next week. What do you think about doing this
now hold
the program?
That's what I was going to say is wrestling wars and promotional wars have been common through the years, but it wasn't often common for one promotion to really give publicity to it and call attention to it in the programs, but they're gloating. And see, the thing is, this was I can't remember the participants and exactly the way it went, but it was a temporary split, and Ed Macklemore he would own a piece of Dallas, the Dallas office, for years after that, and still be figured in enough to where his name was still being used in the 80s when Fritz had taken over. So he lasted along, and he rejoined the NWA. And Macklemore, the way I remember it, Dallas was his. The other Texas office, Macklemore got on the outs with the NWA, and it was early in the NWA existence anyway, the early 50s. And one of the other Texas offices started getting fucking froggy in their territory, so they went back to run their towns. And go ahead, Brian, but it didn't last but another, year or so, if that, or that long.
When again, Dallas is a big town. We think of it as a big city. I shouldn't even say town. But the center of Texas wrestling for the NWA was Houston. The Houston booking office was the booking office. It wasn't the Dallas booking office. Fritz von Erich corrected a lot of this shit for Ed Macklemore, 10 years later, 15 years later. But page 5 of the program, Jim, once again, May 5th, 1953, startling surprises to shock Sportatorium fans Tuesday. And there's 6 question marks all around the page. Possible news? Wrestling War nears showdown. This may be the news you have been waiting for. It's good news for everyone who loves wrestling. But this news will not officially break until a few weeks. Next week's program will tell you more about it. And before we go any farther, the big news we are talking about isn't the marriage of Johnny Dobbs, who's one of the wrestlers on the show. He's building the program here as romantic Johnny Dobbs. Promoter Ed Macklemore has had his back against the wall for nearly 9 months. Facts that he should have revealed have never been revealed by him because he chose not to discredit the persons with whom these facts would hurt. Now, next week, pertinent facts never disclosed before will be revealed.
And I love this is like the way that somebody writes their own lawsuit complaint also.
You people who have wondered as to Macklemore's abrupt discontinuance of employing syndicate wrestlers since the first of the year will have your answers next week. You fans who thought that promoter Ed Macklemore was wrong about certain rights, that's in quotes, and wrongs, also in quotes, muchly publicized in local newspapers, will also get your answer within coming weeks.
It was all a raw deal.
The reason? Facts. Facts that have never been publicized anywhere about the wrestling system in Texas, about the National Wrestling Alliance. To summarize, there will be facts that clearly explain promoter Ed Macklemore's position in the Texas wrestling picture, especially in the Dallas area, and more especially in the nation's wrestling picture. It will explain why Macklemore is doing what the NWA once intended to do. And there it is. And then, of course, they burned down the building before the next show.
So the next show.
So let's stop there for a moment because, again, they're doing this in public. It's in their program. They're taunting these guys. They're going into the NWA cities and running against, you would imagine, established promoters. They're saying next week's the big reveal. And then the building burned down.
Wouldn't you know who won the pony?
Any thoughts on all this? I don't know if
and that again, that's why that it was so convenient that the fire just happened to occur. And that's why they blamed it on, the ongoing promotional war, which behind the scenes, and I know people are going to say Thez was involved. Thez wasn't involved in any of this. Thez was being booked by the other side because that was the NWA, and Macklemore had gone off on his own and was going to reveal all these ways of how he was getting fucked around by other people. And, but the promoters on the ground that they were taunting there, they were the ones that would have been responsible for whatever happened.
Well, the next week's program, Jim, May 12th, 1953, the Livestock Pavilion, Fair Park, no longer the Sportatorium. The first article here, down at ringside. A little over 2 weeks ago, the Syndicate had the brazen effrontery to publish a wrestling card billing Ray Gunkel against Roy Dunn. If he shows up, that's in quotes. As we told you, before this match, Roy Dunn did not show up, nor will he show up for any match with a Syndicate stooge or so-called champion unless the Syndicate agrees to pit their alleged world champion, Lou Thez, against Dunn the same night.
And by the way, that's another thing. So now Macklemore has Roy Dunn say, I'll take Lou Thez on, the NWA champion. And the NWA side comes back with, well, why don't you take on Ray Gunkel first? Ray Gunkel, this was 1953. Had he just, 2 or 3 years earlier been the NCAA heavyweight champion, the same title that Brock Lesnar won? So they're like, yeah, we got our shooter. And of course, that match did not happen.
As usual, the Syndicate again acted in bad faith with the fans, the paying customers, in advertising a match for which they had no contract and when they well knew it would not take place. The fans know that any match must be entered into by both parties, and they also know that when a done match with the NWA puppets is finally arranged, it will be well publicized by both sides and the daily papers. Again, we say, and this is in caps, don't be fooled. The Syndicate is afraid to let Roy Dunn in the same ring with their appointed, that's in quotes, champion, and they will go to any lengths to camouflage the true facts. Roy Dunn has chased the aging Thez all over the country.
The aging Thez, wait a minute, he would have been 37.
All over the country, only to meet the same runaround he has received in Texas. He will not be forced into any phony elimination meet, nor will he be content with a match against anyone but Thez. This is in caps now. But he will meet Gunkel or any other wrestler they name on the same night he meets Thez. So let's stop there for a second. The old switcheroo. Hey, we can't give you Thez. We'll give you this other legitimate wrestler who they probably had a lot of faith in. Okay, I'll wrestle him if I get Thez the same night.
Yeah. Again, it's just, they're selling the sleeves on their vest because they know none of these matches are actually going to take place. So they want to figure out a way to present it like their side is the most magnanimous and, we'll do this and that and the other thing. And So the fans will be on their side.
Meanwhile, here's a tip on the best way to come to the wrestling matches at the new arena at Fair Park. Merely drive into the big Cotton Bowl parking lot at the south end of the fairgrounds, walk through the big center aisle of the livestock barns, right on into the livestock pavilion.
Past the cows. Meh.
Thus, you will be protected from the weather in case of rain.
But watch the cow shit on the floor.
The new arena is roofed, but open-sided, and promises to be cool during the coming summer heat.
Oh my God, they had to go to a fucking place that didn't have walls.
You will find the grandstand seats even more convenient to the ring than the old Sportatorium, and all the conveniences that you have been used to at the Sportatorium are on hand at the
What
new
fucking
location.
conveniences? I was there 30 years later. They didn't have air conditioning. They had rats in the goddamn French fryer. The toilets backed up, and what did work of the restrooms, what conveniences did they have in 1953? Walls. They had walls.
Unfortunately, that's one of the conveniences you can't expect at the new building, but
we have all the modern conveniences the Sportatorium has, except walls.
Coming soon, the wheel. The Big D Jamboree will also be held every Saturday night at the new location, so come on out next Saturday with no walls and enjoy the Carlisles in person.
The Big D Jamboree was the country music show that they did once a week. That's why that ring in a Sportatorium was so fucking hard. It didn't move, because in those days they would take the ropes down and the canvas off the ring and use it as the stage for the country music band. And those ring posts were bolted into the fucking Sportatorium floor, so they never took the ring down.
Well, Jim, one final thing here this week, and this will be a two-parter. We'll return next week with more of this Dallas Wrestling War stuff, the weeks around the burning of the Sportatorium, but on that topic...
Yes, and do they get walls?
From page 7 of the May 12th program, Sportatorium burned down. New Sportatorium is promised. End of era inspires new sports arena. As this is written, Thursday night, May 7th, we are happy to report to you that workmen have almost entirely cleared away the debris.
Oh, Christ. I think we found all the survivors
of the old Sportatorium, destroyed by fire last Friday, a little after midnight. That means that soon the new Sportatorium will be going up, and that we will soon be back at the old location in a brand new building. Other good news we received today was the tidings that Doc Sarpolis returned as promoter Ed McElmore's matchmaker. A hastily written story in another page of the program tells of Doc's reasoning and returning, and we'll have that story next week here on the show, folks. Looking over the situation, we have a very nice and comfortable location out here at Fair Park for the
very nice, very evil
for the matches until the Sportatorium is rebuilt. The new arena is well roofed.
That fucking carport that we're in out in the parking lot, it's fucking wonderful.
Yeah, once again, the arena is well roofed and open sided. That's what it says here. Then there is a vast parking area to the south of the new location. The area can accommodate 5,000 cars. It's easily accessible by bus and streetcar transportation. The only disadvantage is that it isn't the same old Sportatorium. The Sportatorium was built in the Texas Centennial year of 1936.
Wow.
At that time, it was a great achievement in the architectural world, so far as arena construction was concerned.
Yeah, how they were able to build something that would hold that many people that cheap is what the achievement was.
It was a Dallas landmark. The blaze that destroyed it in less than 40 minutes will never wipe out the fond memories of the many years.
Because it was almost all wood.
Well, the fond memories of the many years.
The fond memories. I had a few fond memories in that building, and I've said before, that's what happened is it originally was bigger, but the fire primarily damaged the one side of it. So when they rebuilt it, they put that corrugated aluminum wall flat down the left-hand side of it. And that's why the inside shape was so odd, and that one blank wall that you would see the flag hanging on, was there. In the 80s, the parking lot was gravel. So what the fuck was it? Quicksand in 1953?
Well, back to this article here. But to serve the selfish interests of some outsiders, the Dallas landmark was destined to go, evidently at any cost. It will be a long time before forgetting the old Sportatorium. But as we stated to start with, the remains of the nationally famous structure are just about carried away. Now, it is time to think about the new Sportatorium. What kind of building would you wrestling fans like in the future? Any suggestions you might have as to the new plans for the new arena would be appreciated by promoter Ed McElmore. It will be a modern, brand new construction, but it will still be the same Sportatorium, just for the fans of Dallas who enjoy the Sportatorium type of entertainment, be it wrestling, boxing, or other sports, or any other type show. Just remember that the building will be there for your enjoyment. So, again, that's where we'll wrap up today. We'll come back to this next week, but 2 weeks of the Dallas Wrestling War. Next week, we got a big announcement, and then the next week, the big announcement is we're going to be here in this building with no walls.
The building burned down, so... Oh, and they had much grander plans, it apparently sounds like, to rebuild the Sportatorium than what they actually followed through with.
Yeah, in terms of the remains being carried away, I mean, if there was still that much left, you can't really pretend like everything was gone. It's kind of weird the way they're wording everything.
Well, I think there was a lot of damage to what was left, but they, again, put up new walls and they probably walled a few rooms off in that thing. It was goddamn, especially you go up in the Crow's Nest and up in those offices where Fritz had his offices and everything. And guys would go up at the top of the arena and look at watch the matches through a cage apparatus they had up there. Who knows what kind of goddamn hidden chambers were in that thing? There was actually, not only was the ring posts bolted to the ground so you couldn't remove the ring, but there was some type. Joe Pedicino told me this when he was running Global down there and was trying to get a new ring, because that's the first thing I told him. Get a new fucking ring. You know, the guys are killing themselves. He said it's bolted to the ground and there's a door underneath the ring, a hatch door that leads to something. He said, do you know what that might be? I said, no. And I don't know if he ever looked.
Well, as we said, we shall return to this story next week. For acoustics, Jim, what's better, no walls or no ceiling?
I tell you, the acoustics, it depends. If it was a tin roof, which it sounds like it was, that was probably louder than having walls but no roof, because the sound goes up and then gets reflected back down.
All right, and with that, the drive-thru is closed.
We're reflecting the sound back to you.
I don't have it in my thumbs today. I don't have it.
Yeah.
There you go. Once again, we'll return more of the Dallas Wrestling War next week, as well as guest the program, retro figures, and the usual nonsense. Cornette's Collectibles at JimCornette.com. Let's start with that so we didn't get to it at the top.
We're back in business, baby. After the holiday break, everything that has been purchased through January 1st was handed off to Hotchkiss Featherbottom on January 5th and is going to get a label slapped on it, get in the mail stream. So we're back up and ready, and we still have, I think we're on the last 1,000 copies of the second printing of Heroes and Friends, but you can order that now along with all the other good stuff at JimCornette.com.
And I got a signed Heroes and Friends rated 10 if anyone wants to get a perfect mint on card.
Hey!
Well, we could talk later. But Cornette's Collectibles at JimCornette.com, of course.
I stuck a booger on page 82.
Patreon.com/Cornette. Get access to the archive going back to 2013. Patreon.com/Cornette. The official Jim Cornette YouTube channel. Just go to YouTube and look for Jim Cornette. Search for him. He'll come right up. Full episodes, clips of the episodes, omnibus collections, the very popular George Livonitis artwork, the official Jim Cornette YouTube channel. Where else are we? The wrestling news. Each and every day, get your wrestling news for free directly from thewrestlingnews.com or wherever you find your favorite podcasts. And with that, I think we've covered, the law office of Stephen P. New, 877-50. Get even with Stephen at newlawoffice.com. He sponsors the drive-thru, so support him. Any words about Stephen, Jim?
Yes, he's a badass son of a bitch that you don't want to cross. More on that to come. We got an upcoming cast media update as soon as we get it cleared that it'll rankle some people's feathers.
The funniest thing ever, but find out more about that, 877-5, well, not from him, but 877-50 here on the airwaves. But with that, we are done until the experience in a few days, and next week back here on the drive-thru. For Jim Cornette, I'm the great Brian Last. Tally-ho!